session started.
Great. Good afternoon, everybody. We have a two-part study session that we're hoping to get through. So first we'll have the pre-study session where we actually have a developer to present, then go into the TNR residential analysis. We also have a short presentation planned by Ryan Kilpatrick. Then we have our meeting, and then we're hoping to get back into study session after the meeting to have an actual discussion about the TNR analysis. And likely that'll be the only item that we'll be able to get to for that after meeting study session. So what I'm going to start by doing is getting onto the screen the developer study session. So I did see Vishal Aurora is on the call. In one moment, Mallory will allow for you to be unmuted. And then I'm thinking I could just share my screen, and then you can tell me when to change it and whatnot, because I have all the documents together. But as a quick introduction, this property is located, sorry, I don't have a map up with me, but the property is located at the corner of 24th and Waverly. The site plan will illustrate that in just one moment. They're proposing 5 residential buildings, totaling 176 units, apartment units, and then 2 commercial buildings, as well as internal streets and site improvements. With no further ado, I'm going to pass it over to Vishal or someone from his development team. And like I said, I will now share the site plan information. So Mallory, if you could unmute, well, let's first unmute Vishal and ask him who will be presenting. There, I see him.
Good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Sounds like you can, based on the head nodding. Good. Thanks for hosting us this afternoon. I will be presenting for the most part on our behalf. The architect from Hooker de Young, Eric Mehring, is online on the phone. So if there's any specific questions for him, we can prompt him. But in the interim, he'll be on mute. The purpose that I really want to do, or the purpose of this meeting really was for us to give you in brief form an overview of our
Oops,
Uh-oh.
we've lost audio.
Vishal, we cannot hear you for some reason. You're not muted. Uh-oh, he can't hear
We
us.
lost your audio.
Can you hear us? Uh-oh.
There's someone else on the call that can step in for a moment. Someone else from the development team. He said someone from Hooker de Young was I see Ty.
proposed development here at 24th and Waverly.
Oh, there we go.
Vishal.
Yes, Jen, I can hear you now.
Oh, there we go.
Okay.
Okay, good.
We're all good.
We lost you for a little bit, so.
Oh, you did. I'm sorry. So I was just asking the question, does the group know anything about our firm or what we're doing in general in West Michigan?
No.
Should I spend a couple minutes giving an overview?
Yeah, you may want to give a quick overview.
I will. I'll try to make it brief because we can tend to go on. So I run Magnus Capital Partners. We're New York based, but hail from West Michigan. So I went to Zealand, and we over the last several years have been developing a way to give back to the West Michigan community by leveraging what we think we figured out how to do professionally. And what we do predominantly is multifamily housing around the country. is what we've been up to. New York and North Carolina, Texas, California. But West Michigan, we looked at it and said, okay, well, what's missing? And apparently what was starkly missing has been an answer to the shortage of workforce, high quality workforce housing. A quick scan of the area, the various municipalities, yourselves included, seem to indicate this desire for it, but there seemed to be a big gap in the supply of the solution. And so we spend a number of, a lot of effort, I guess, trying to figure that out. We ultimately arrived at an affordable housing solution. So it sits inside of the low-income housing tax credit program, the LIHTC program, administered by MISTA. And we have been exclusively developing 4% tax credit development. Our first one is currently in Wyoming at the old Studio 28 movie theater site. That is an interesting turn of events because I'm not sure if the audience or the group on the phone had the experience too, but I used to go to movies there as a kid. And so it was a really interesting opportunity for us to go full circle and start to reimagine downtown Wyoming and the whole DDA area. And so we are delivering on 13 acres, approximately 386 apartments. That project is relevant as it relates to some of this architecture that I'll walk you through. But really that project has put us on a track to do more of workforce housing, high quality workforce housing, amenity rich, appropriate for the area. So we do adapt to what's required locally. But you won't see us do, therefore, one of two things. You will not see us do high-end condo or market rate rental work, and you will not see us develop lower income or supportive housing, Section 8 type voucher type program work either. We are firm in staying in the middle, in middle of the workforce housing segment that needs to be addressed. So with that said, I won't bore you with the rest of it, but that's sort of a high level overview. So some of the features that you'll see consistently across our approach, and is true also at 24th and Waverly, is one, a level of density that's appropriate. So we do our best to follow what's in future land use objectives. We employ 2, 3, or 4-story form factors depending on what's appropriate. This version in front of you has gone through, Jenna, correct me if I'm wrong, 1 or 1.5 versions or iterations and discussions with staff to get to an appropriate massing. But you'll also see something that we're quite happy about being able to pull off here, which is the main entrance from Waverly has a primary boulevard concept. So a very clear articulation, in this case, east to west, that is lined by 2 residential buildings with the vast majority of the indoor amenity programming contained at the ground floor. And that's intentional. The intention here is to bring people in to a central place of congregation, to make it feel like a community where we're not putting in a variety of disparate amenities in different buildings, but rather asking everyone to commune effectively together. So there's leasing offices there, your gym and fitness studio is there, your Amazon package locker room is there, as we're all, guilty, I'm sure, of plenty of package deliveries in the last 12 months. But also you'll see a natural extension into some of the green space. This site doesn't have a lot of green space given the acreage constraints, but we've been managed to put it wherever we can. That includes things like a dog park feature on the northwest part of the site. That's important, a small walking trail, playground area. But the principal idea is there that Boulevard feels like a mini Main Street type feeling. It walks in, you feel kind of like you're going down a very close-knit and frankly dense footprint, albeit appropriately sized. Those amenity spaces are really meant to be, resident only, right? That's the principal context there. Um, the other thing I'll note here while we're on this view is you'll notice the two outlot buildings fronting Waverly. This is an interesting opportunity that we've been hoping for on all of our projects, and I think this one fortunately has the first real opportunity to pull this off, which is to explicitly support local retail and businesses. These are two single-story buildings, approximately 6,000 square feet in footprint. Our hope here is to offer this space as either incubation space in the formal sense, or at least some kind of launch pad type space for growing small business retail. When the RFPs go out, our hope, and please don't hold me to this, but our hope is that the RFPs exclude any nationals or chains from participating. And the idea here is that retail is directly complementary to the residents, but also directly beneficial to those local businesses looking for exposure. And Waverly, of course, has a fair amount of traffic, and so that we think that'll be a positive event for all parties. But it is all contained within the site, so we're not creating any hard barriers between our resident portion and the retail portion. But I want to just highlight that is something that we feel very strongly about inside of our ESG mission and our desire to create a positive social impact. The retail is a really fun extension of that concept that we're hoping to bring to the site. The other part that I want to highlight is one small and one more salient feature. The small feature has to do with the way the boulevard turns at the end. So it does terminate and then U-turns back. We think that's a very convenient drop-off location for things like Uber or passenger pickup and drop-off. It's a very convenient way to do it. So we're excited to see that feature being integrated into the site. The other larger point I wanted to bring home was, and Jen, if you have any interior elevations or photos or renderings of the units, we can flip to that. But I want to just bring home the quality that we're bringing to the apartments. So while we are technically inside of the affordable housing realm, our team has tirelessly been working on trying to find high quality, aesthetically pleasing, highly functional open plan spaces for the units. So you'll see all units virtually will have a kitchen island, for example. No, they're not marble countertops because it ultimately is an affordable product, but there are countertops. It is an island. You can pull stools up to it. It is a functional space that melds with the living room. And it's all new construction, so we're offering a pretty high spec in terms of what we think the existing affordable housing inventory might be locally. So we're very focused on positive social impact, appropriate design. We like to think of ourselves as user friendly. Jenna may tell me otherwise, but we try to be user friendly as much as we can with staff to find the right win-win. And I'll pause my comments there and open it up to questions.
That's perfect. Thank you very much.
Sure.
If I can just jump in just really quickly, in the staff report, you may have seen that the two items that staff are still a little bit, I would absolutely agree that Vishal and his team have been very, very easy to work with. But just the two items which I've also brought to their attention is Brian White specifically is concerned about the lack of lining up the driveways. So this driveway is a secondary driveway to the Gateway Center. So there was a hope that the driveways could line up. Vishal and his team have said that it really just is not possible. So they are doing a traffic study. So there'll be more information on that when they come for actual, approval or review for approval. The other thing is there are issues with the consumers lines that are existing, which they've been tirelessly working with. So they're going to be pulling those consumer lines down into the right of way. And then there's some issues with trees, since, you know, we definitely want to see the trees along Waverly. So that's another item that we'll be working on with them as well in the little bit before they apply for final review. Sorry, thank you.
No, that's okay, Lynn.
Yeah, Jenna, I'm just wondering, I understand why it would be good to have the alignment when it's a street. Why does Brian suggest that there should be an alignment with that secondary driveway across the street?
Mark, do you want to comment on that?
Yeah, so it's really kind of an issue of a left turn lockup. So there is a center and there's a fifth center lane here. So if
Yes.
you can envision somebody, you know, doing a left turn, wanting to turn left into this development, and then somebody doing a left turn out of that driveway on the west side, there's a conflict point there.
I
So-
see.
So that's one of the, you know, the major things that Brian is looking at. What Jen has indicated too, though, is that driveway for the Gateway Center, it's a secondary driveway. I've talked with Daryl Bartlett over there at the rescue mission, and they want to be able to retain the driveway, but it's not used much. It's just really kind of employees. Now, granted, things can change, but we're going to continue working on this issue. So.
Okay, thank you. That makes
I have a
sense.
question for Vishal.
Yeah.
Vishal, could you tell us about the square footage on the 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units, the proposed square footage?
Good. Bear with me for a second. Let me pull my notes up, make sure I'm not speaking out of turn. Jenna, can you zoom in by chance on that lower right section? There should be some. Oh, those are just counts. Bear with me. Let's see. Eric, you're on the phone. Eric, are you able to provide any detail on unit sizes?
Yeah, I'm trying to look it up right now. Give me a second.
Any other questions?
I had one related to the credits, the LIHTC credits, or is that part of the competitive process? And is this project contingent on those being approved?
It is not part of the competitive 9% tax credit rounds that we're all, so most of us think of. This is part of the 4% direct lending route with MISTA. What is competitive, I guess, is the gap funding that MISTA provides to supplement that direct lending program in second and third mortgage position debt. That we do ultimately compete for if you need it. So I would tell you, to give you maybe a bit too much details, that, you know, prior to 12/31 of last year, we needed it and submitted our application to MISTA accordingly. In the omnibus spending bill that Congress passed in December of last year, the 4% LIHTC rate actually got fixed at 4%, which had the effect of generating more equity into these projects just through the tax credit equity component itself, and therefore reduced reliance on the need for any gap funding in the case of 24th and Waverly. That's how we currently are looking at it. It is possible that there's some amount still needed to get it across the finish line, but it would be far less than what would have been the case 3 months ago.
That's great. It's a
So
really
you-
solid project. I'd hate to see it not happen because
Yeah.
of credits and things. So,
Yeah.
Sure.
So you submitted your tax credit application already?
We submitted our initial notice of intent to apply back on December 1st.
Okay.
And rankings have been published. Now the next stage for this project is for due diligence package to be delivered to MISTA by May, which is meant to include everything basically. So because the idea is that that due diligence package takes you into loan committee and then therefore in a closing sequence. So from a municipal perspective, that includes site plan and pilot approvals, critically, along with supportive zoning letters and things of that nature. And then of course, the other due diligence items like your phase 1 and your traffic studies and all the rest of it goes with that. But that's not due that is due, I should say, in May. So part of this conversation is kind of gearing up for that ultimate submission.
Okay. Is it Eric that's on the phone call?
Yeah,
Okay. Were you able to find that?
I do. We currently have, these are just from our preliminary plans, a 1-bedroom at 600 square feet, a 2-bedroom at 840, and a 3-bedroom at 1,000 square feet. Those are net numbers.
How much would each of them cost?
That would be a Vishal answer.
That is a good question. Let me just pull up my, let me pull up my my notes. The units are, so there's not one clear answer in the sense that
Right.
we're using the income averaging, right, math on that. So we're solving to, on average, a 60% AMI. So a 60% of area median income for whether you're a 1, 2, 3 person household. Generally speaking, just as a broad rule of thumb, the affordable units are priced for those earning between $13 and $22 an hour, the equivalent thereof. That's what we generally size our program to, and that's generally where the majority of the housing demand is.
A single
ultimately.
person?
No, actually, that range is sometimes can be for two earners in the same household as well. It just depends on where it is. So like the lowest band, and I'm happy to give you some follow-up
Right.
information on this over email. The 40% band, 40% of AMI is our lowest band that we include. And then the choices are 40, 50, 60, 70, 80. And then you can do the math to average to 60.
Okay.
In this case, we would include, like I said, an average of averaging to 60%, but we would also likely include some market rate units that if someone was making 80% rent, had to requalify the following year, was making too much, quote unquote, to stay, we're able to still move into a unit and stay on premises, or stay on premises, and we just switch the units around on paper so that we don't lose them.
Right.
So we would introduce some market rate as well. And all of the above, the rents that we're talking about are ultimately subject to MISTA review and sanction
Awesome. Any other
through a
questions?
market study process.
Just some feedback, Vishal. I really like the design. I like the fact that I like your intention, the purpose of workplace and the housing. I like what you're going to try to do with your retail. I think I really like the whole package. I think it's going to be a great addition to Holland. So I hope you succeed with it.
Thank you very much.
I do have a question, but I know that we're over time, so I can send those. I can send it later if that would you prefer.
Nathan?
I've just got a couple of quick comments about the commercial aspect of this. You said with the RFP, you were going to be trying to focus on local. Have you thought about focusing on people who are actually residents of this particular project as well, and targeting the businesses as ones that would serve the people who lived here? Because one of the things that I'm looking at with this is a need for these folks to be able to have retail that's close. Yeah, Meyer is what, a half mile down the road or so, but I imagine there are going to be a lot of young families that are going to be living here, a lot of pedestrian traffic throughout this. It'd be nice for them to be able to have some retail that serviced them directly as well.
Yeah, I agree with your thoughts, Mayor. I think that we would love to see that. And to be clear, when we craft the RFP process, we want to be intentional about it. So it is in fact supportive to that. And honestly, I think that even if we weren't writing a strict RFP and just put it to market, I think the market hopefully would recognize a lot of housing units at its back door and say, well, we'd love to put a roaster, a coffee roaster in. What we're going to control ultimately is we don't want 3 coffee roasters, right? We just want one, or one dry cleaner, or one whatever, just because it becomes supportive retail to the on-site population. So I agree with your thoughts. It is early innings for us, probably pre-game, honestly, in terms of coming up with that ultimate set of documentation and strategy. But your point is well received, and we share a similar thought.
Yeah, I agree with Fred. I love the idea. I love the concept. I hope this is successful. The last comment I would make is, within the interior of the project, keep a close eye on your pedestrian traffic patterns, because I'm looking at the patterns that I would think my kids would have gone from the residential units to the commercial units, and it looks like it's right through the busiest portion of the development. If there's a way to be able to guide them in a place that might be a little safer route for them to go, I think that would be helpful.
Okay.
I'm wondering, it looks like you have a stormwater detention area. I'm wondering if the commercial, well, you probably want the visibility on Waverly, I guess, too. But.
Yeah.
But yeah, my only question, I think, kind of alluded to it, but you have 2 buildings for 6,000 square feet. Are there multiple units or tenants that could take that spot, or is your goal to have one tenant take up the entire space? Like, have you thought, some of the first time you're looking to divide it out?
Yeah, we would look to divide that out probably into 4 or 5 suites in each building. Most likely, we think that's the right amount of space. It could be that one wants to take a larger, corner or something. We can always look at that. But yes, we would think overall we end up with 10 to 12 retailers across the 2 buildings.
Great. Lynn, did you have a quick question?
No, it's okay. No,
Okay.
I'm good. Yep, thank you.
Yeah.
I'm good.
All right. Thank you
No,
so much.
one more comment.
Oh,
Sorry.
please.
I know. Sorry, I was gonna say, I know you mentioned the dog park. I know that's a great amenity for some of the residents. I know the city of Holland just added a dog park right there on 24th Street as well, probably less than half a mile away. So since you are thinking about having limited green space, potentially being able to use that as something or another feature. I mean, it might be a selling feature and you like that, but I know there's a nice brand new dog park not too far away from that space as well. So if you're looking at changing something up, there might be an opportunity to use that green space for something different.
Okay. Thanks.
Great.
Great. Thank you very much, Vishal. We will be in touch. Let me know, where you're at with your process, and we'll figure out what the next steps are.
Sounds good. Thank you for having us. I will get in touch with the agenda to schedule a quick debrief, and then we can plot next steps.
Sounds great.
Thank you, everyone.
There. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. See you.
Bye. Okay, so I'm going to move right along here. Up here is the analysis that we did for the traditional neighborhood residential zone district, or as it is called now, the RTRN, traditional residential neighborhood, both the same thing. My intent right now is to just introduce the data. We will not have time in the beginning here to discuss the data really. I just want to kind of just present it, have it out there. Then the plan is that Ryan will speak to some of this data, especially looking at the financial feasibility, this number that we added about properties that are equal to or less than 180,000 true cash value. And then we'll go into the meeting, and then that's why we need to come back into study session so that there can be discussion about this report.
Thanks, Jenna, for doing all the hard work on this one.
What's that?
Thanks for doing all the hard work on this one.
Absolutely. And he's not on the call, but very much thank you to Alex Epstein as well, who is our GIS tech, who helped me tremendously with this. So,
Good.
okay, so breaking it down, option number 1 in all of these is what is existing. So here we are at the 4,800 square feet per unit, 60-foot street frontage. That gives us 171 eligible properties, meaning that there's 171 of the, and I should introduce just real quickly that there's 2,872 total properties in RTRN, and then that number goes down to 2,742 actual residential properties. So that's taking out like Evergreen Commons, churches, etc. And then even further, the Hope Neighborhood District, as you know, can't have more than single family units in that area. So that number is further reduced to 2,406, which is the number of units that are not in the Hope District. And then we also have the total vacant properties, which is also mapped, which we'll get to in just one moment. Okay, so then just looking at this, so 171 eligible properties with this criteria, that's 7% of this number, this 2,406 number. Existing properties with 2+ units, there's 30 of them that meet this eligibility criteria. Vacant properties, 3. Properties with the 180 true cash value, which again, Ryan will go through in a moment, is 50. And then properties with 1 unit rentals existing are 7 within this criteria. So that's option number 1 for 2 units. Option number 2 is kind of where where Planning Commission had gotten to previously, which is the 3,250 square feet per unit, street frontage of 50. That brings it up to eligible properties as 881. So that brings it up to 37% of those 2,406 properties. Existing properties here with 2+ units, 99. Vacant properties, 7. I'm going to skip the true cash value, but just 532 for this one. And then existing properties with 1 unit rentals is 88. So that is a significant jump. Though when we had talked about it before, there was also the information that was provided by Ryan in terms of financial feasibility, and that really, when it's all said and done, likely we'll see about 5% of these 881 turning into duplexes or 2 units in the future. But just again, Ryan will talk a little bit more about that. Going on, so then we wanted to see, okay, well, what is the factor that brings that number from 170 to 881? And really it is that the width of the property more so than the square footage. So if we were to go to 3,250 square feet per unit with a street frontage of 60, that eligible property goes down to 314, which is 13% of the residential properties not in the Hope District. Existing properties there is 52 with the 2+ units, vacant 4, 180 true cash value or less, 103, and then existing properties with 1 unit rentals is 17. So then we wanted to see, okay, well, what happens if we do change the square footage? Does that significantly change the numbers in terms of looking at the width and the square footage? So here we're looking at 3,500 square feet per unit back at that 50-foot width. You can see that that number then jumps up a bit again, because there are a lot more properties that are eligible that have 50 feet width than 60 feet width.
Let me ask you just a quick question on all of these. When you say eligible properties, are you talking about properties that are eligible under these conditions to convert to a 2 unit?
Yes,
That's
under
what
these
you're talking
conditions.
Okay, thank you.
So then the percentage of the residential units, 18%, existing properties with 2+ units, 63, vacant 5, 180 true cash value, 170, and then 1 unit rentals existing 34. And the thought about that is that potentially there could be more people, more, investor-owned properties that have 1 unit rentals already that would say, hey, I'm gonna add another unit than other properties. So, and then the true also with vacant, those are more likely to go to duplexes when built, possibly.
You're talking, when you say vacant properties, you mean lots that are that size currently that somebody owns, but there's nothing on it?
Yes.
Okay.
And and who knows, they may sell the lot, they may keep it themselves, they may build, there's all sorts of different variables, right? But yes, they are actual vacant properties that meet this criteria.
Mhm.
So then we look at that 3,500 per unit with a 60-foot width. So we're at 297 eligible properties. That's 12%, 51 with 2+ units, 4 with vacant properties, 4 are vacant properties, I'm sorry. 91 that 180 true cash value, and then existing properties with 1 unit rentals is 14. And then lastly, for the 2 unit, in terms of the analysis, we have 4,000 square feet per unit, sticking at the 50-foot width. And so that comes out to 248 eligible properties, which is 10% of the residential properties, 47 with 2+ units on them now, 3 that are vacant, 70 that are equal to or less than 180,000 true cash value, and then 11 that have 1 unit rentals on them existing. So then the other 2 items that we're putting forward as potential options for Planning Commission to consider is potentially a pilot to kind of test what happens when we do this. This is what we used for short-term rentals, if you recall. So there could be like a cap, like hypothetically, if you were to stay with the 3,250 square feet and 50-foot. Now the eligible is 881, but let's say that you put in a pilot and you say, well, really, we're going to cap that at 100, or cap it at 40 or 20 or whatever the number is that you want to cap it at, and cap it for a year or 2 years. And potentially you could even do a separation distance if you want to do that as well, which is what we do with short-term rentals. So then you say that only one of these can be built within, 500 feet from each other, et cetera, et cetera.
Jenna,
Yes,
can you only do the cap though in the pilot program?
yes.
Okay, you can't do that once you make it an ordinance. You can't.
Oh, well, no, that's not true, actually. You can do it. You can do it in the ordinance as well.
Okay.
So like short-term rentals, we ended up making that not a pilot, and that's still in existence. So
I didn't know if that was a legal thing the city was allowed to do, was cap the number of rentals.
yeah, I mean, I think that there is definitely some legal stuff that we would have to discuss with the attorney, because it is quite different than short-term rentals.
Right,
Yeah, I'd confirm specifics with Ron if you get to that point.
right, okay.
Absolutely.
You could
So
limit it to 1 per
sorry.
block. You could limit it to 1 conversion per block.
Yeah.
Another option.
Again, the specifics will have to get ironed out with Ron, but this is just one of the options to discuss further when we get back from from the meeting.
Yep.
And then the other item that we've added option for all of these 2 unit, 3 unit, and 4 unit is owner occupied. So it's requiring that you have, for instance, the 4,000 square feet and the 50-foot frontage, but all of those units that are built would have to have an owner occupied component to them. So that's another item that will also need to be further discussed with Ron if Planning Commission directs us to go that route. So I'm going to move into this just really super quickly. Looking at time, I really do want Ryan to be able to present for a bit. Really, this is what's existing right now for 3 units. We're at 14,400 square feet total, that 4,860-foot frontage, eligible properties 31. That's 1% of the housing stock not in Hope neighborhood. 2+ units, 10 vacant properties, 1 180 TCV, true cash value 6, 1 unit rentals 3. Going back to where we're at right now, or in terms of proposing for Udo, 3,250 square feet, 50-foot frontage. That jumps it up to 167 eligible properties. And again, this is specifically for allowing for 3 units now on those properties. That's 7% of the housing stock, 32+ units existing, 3 vacant properties, 47 the true cash value item, and then 6 1-unit rentals exist. 3,500. So for these, we didn't do all 6 options because they're not as significant of a jump. Now we can, if directed by Planning Commission, absolutely go back and do, what is 3,250 with a 60-foot width as well. So did someone say my name? Okay, 3,500 square feet per unit, 50 feet width, 132 eligible properties, 5% of the housing stock, 27 with 2+ units existing, 3 vacant properties, 34 equal to or less than 180,000 true cash value, and then 6 with 1 unit rentals. And then for the 4,000 with the 50-foot frontage, 63 eligible properties, 3% of the housing stock, 18 have 2+ units now, 2 are vacant, 16 with the true cash value item, and then 4 have existing 1-unit rentals. And again, as you can see, those 2 options are also included here, pilot or owner occupied. 4 units, what is existing, 4,800 and 60-foot width. Eligible properties right now for 4 units is only 15, which is less than 1% of the housing stock. 2+ units, 3 vacant properties, 1 properties with a true cash value, 5, and 1 unit rentals existing 2. Moving that up to 3,250 square feet with the 50-foot frontage, eligible properties goes from 15 to 52, 2% of the housing stock, 16 existing properties with 2+ units, vacant properties 2, true cash value 13, and then 1 unit rentals existing 4. Bringing that back down to 3,500, well, up to 3,500, 50-foot width, that brings that eligible properties back down to 32, about 1% of the housing stock. Existing properties with 2 units, 10, vacant 1, true cash value 6, and 1 unit rentals 3. And then the 4,000 with 50 brings eligible properties even further down to 23. Those still up from the 15 that exists now. 1% of the housing stock, 6 2+ units, 1 vacant property, 6 true cash value, and then 1 unit rentals existing 3. Now I've also included in this analysis, which we can discuss further, is what is existing in terms of rentals. Broke that down a bit as well. And again, I think we could bring that back when we get back into discussion. At this point though, what I'd like to do is turn it over to Ryan. And Ryan is going to need to be able to share his screen, Mallory, as well. So if you can find him.
like Where's Waldo with multiple screens.
Right.
There we go. Ryan, it looks like you're unmuted.
Yeah, I'm ready to go. I'm just waiting to toss my screen up. All right.
Okay.
Jenny, you might need to take yours off for him to, there we go.
Ready? Okay, so I'm going to cruise through this. I wanted to provide just a little bit of context. I know a lot of people are paying attention to this, and we've had lots of conversations in the past about the data. I'm going to provide a very short version of the data just to provide context for the audience's perspective. I've seen a lot of comments out there about whether this is about affordability or low income. Want to clarify that when we talk about affordable housing, affordable is a relative term. It just means you're not spending more than 30% of your income on housing. And so whether you're earning $18,000 a year or $90,000 a year, affordable is 30% of your income. And so Housing Next has always been advocating a variety of choices of housing at all price points and choices within every neighborhood. Critical to recognize that roughly 1 out of every 3 households in Ottawa County is currently spending more than 30% of their income on housing. And what's really surprising about this data is that owner occupants are more likely to be cost overburdened than are renters in Ottawa County right now. This is a reversal of data in most counties across the state of Michigan. Usually renters are struggling a bit more, but here it's homeowners. Another critical statistic for us to be thinking about, especially relative to this conversation, is the fact that more than 2/3 of renter households are just 1 adult or 2 adults with no kids at home. So as often as we think about housing being occupied by families with kids, the kind of leave it to beaver model of housing, that is actually not the predominant household across Ottawa County or in the city of Holland. And the same is true for owner occupants. 62% of owner occupants are single adults or 2 adults with no kids living at home. So, when we think about who are the folks that are looking for housing and aren't able to find it, it's these single adults, and the kinds of housing options they're looking for tend to be smaller, require less maintenance, but come with greater level of amenities, greater accessibility to shops and services and schools and employment. And we have largely ignored those housing options across the community in favor of the traditional single-family house. The traditional single-family house is a fantastic solution for a lot of families. It's a super important part of the mix, but recognizing that that solution doesn't solve housing needs for every family or for every household, what we want to do is be building in more housing opportunities of a variety of sizes and price points in every neighborhood, but doing that in a careful and respectful way for each neighborhood. So there's been a lot of conversation about accessory dwelling units. I know that there's been a lot of information out there about that. One of the things that's critical from our perspective as we talk about accessory dwelling units is the difference between the detached kind of backyard apartment that gets built above the garage or next to the garage and the cost of new construction, as opposed to the accessory dwelling unit that is located within the principal structure. So using that existing square footage and converting it to become a guest suite or a mother-in-law apartment that is within the 4 walls of the traditional structure. And so when we think about those things, it's really important to understand the cost per square foot when we're building new can be upwards of $200 per square foot. So it's relatively expensive, and I think the criticism that those accessory dwelling units in the backyard are not affordable is fairly accurate, although at 400 square feet, we can still build them relatively inexpensively compared to a traditional apartment. However, when we're able to convert existing square footage to create a new dwelling unit within the principal structure, where it's owner occupied or not owner occupied, there the cost per square foot comes down significantly. We can do those renovations for $50 to $75 a square foot. And so then the price point becomes much more manageable for a single adult, for an aging adult who wants to remain in place. And these kinds of options allow folks who have owned their homes for 30 years and have more square footage than they can handle remain in place and rent out the upstairs maybe to a home health care worker. Also offers opportunities for young people who want to be able to afford to live in the city but can't quite make that mortgage work on their own. If they can create that guest suite upstairs or in the back, That allows them to more easily pay their mortgage and become first-time homeowners. So these are a couple of examples. These are actually just outside of Atlanta. So this is not a Michigan-based example, but these housing products reminded me a lot of the new construction that happened on the old Washington School site. And what they did here is they built the accessory dwelling unit right into the single family house. Now, just like Washington School, these houses start around $400,000, but those accessory dwelling units offer an opportunity for passive income for the homeowners. So roughly $900 to $1,000 a month makes that $400,000 to $500,000 mortgage more affordable. It also creates a new housing opportunity within the neighborhood for a smaller family or a single adult or a couple. Now, this is the important part. So Jenna kept referencing $180,000 true cash value. Why the heck did we pick that number? So I want to first preface that the $180,000 number is relative to a 2-unit in the city of Holland. When we talk about 3 or 4 unit conversion, we've got to adjust our math. So it won't be $180,000 anymore, it'll be higher. But if I'm a landlord, if I'm kind of a third-party investor and I'm just looking for a property to make a kind of passive income on, I want to rent out, I want to convert a single family house into a 2-unit house and rent out both units. In order for that decision to make financial sense, I really don't want to spend more than $180,000 to buy that house, because I know going in that it's going to cost me at least $25,000 to convert a portion of that house into a second dwelling unit. I'm going to have to install a new kitchen for sure. That's going to be $12,000 to $15,000. I'm probably going to have to tear down a wall or two or put up a new wall. I'm going to have to adjust the stairwell or do something to make laundry accessible, right? All of those things cost money. And so when you add the likely minimum renovation cost to your acquisition cost, and then you look at what is the likely income that you're going to earn over a 10-year time period, which is the traditional investment horizon for a landlord investor. And then you look at what your monthly rent might be, you're really going to max out your rent in the neighborhood at about $1,000 a month per unit. Now you can rent out a single family house for more than that. You can rent out a single family house for $1,200 to $1,400 per month. But a 1-bedroom or a 2-bedroom apartment is not likely going to rent for more than $1,000 a month. And so that's how we arrived at this $180,000 ceiling. And what's important about that is when we look at the average cost to purchase a house in the city of Holland today, especially in the TNR district, average cost today is $230,000. There are definitely still houses that are selling for below that. There are still houses that might sell for below $180,000. But the number of houses for sale on the market is minuscule. We're talking about 1% of the overall market is actually available for sale at any given time. And there's an extraordinary amount of competition from first-time home buyers and second and third-time home buyers who want to live in the city. And typically, those homeowners who want to live in those homes are going to outcompete a landlord on price. They're going to be willing to spend $230,000, $240,000, $250,000 for a single family home to live in the neighborhood. And a landlord, frankly, is not going to spend that much money, knowing that they're going to have to also spend money in renovations in order to create that second unit. It won't be worth it. There won't be enough cash flow. So there's a financial regulator in terms of the number of units that you could potentially convert over time. And now the other really important factor that I'm hoping you all will consider as you weigh a lot of the great data that Jenna shared today is what the existing neighborhood character looks like in the TRN district, what those lot sizes look like, and what happens when we increase those lot size requirements. So we had this evaluation put together by Har Yi and Nick Werlinski, which has been super helpful as we've tried to figure out, what's the right mix. And I think as the Planning Commission weighs, what are the options to ensure that conversions of single family houses doesn't go like crazy, right? I don't think anybody wants that to happen. I think we want to provide an incremental amount of additional housing choice, but not create overwhelming change in any neighborhood. I think the better way to cap the number of potential conversions, rather than kind of a draconian regulatory approach, is frankly to use the pilot approach that Jenna was talking about, is to say, let's start with a specified number and see how it goes. And if it goes well, you can open that up to more. But what you're looking at here is a majority of the lots in the TRN district are right around that 50-foot width lot requirement. And as you begin to increase that lot requirement, whether by width or by area, you start to create lots that are getting more and more out of character with the traditional fabric of the neighborhood. You start to create these kind of awkward spaces in between structures. Those can be spaces that are used really well as gardens, or they can just be spaces where cars are parked. And I really want to strongly encourage that you stick with the standards that were originally proposed, but think about maybe a pilot initiative where you're capping the number of conversions in those first couple of years to kind of test it out. And then I would commit to you that Housing Next will gladly work with some partners to make sure that we get some really high quality examples to make sure that we're setting the right pattern going forward. So with that, oh, the last thing I want to mention is that when we allow for something other than single family homes, if you allow for a single family home to be converted into a 2-unit or a 3-unit, one, recognize that we have a lot of single family homes that are rentals. So converting an existing single family home to a 2-family doesn't mean that you're creating new rentals in the neighborhood. What it simply means is you're creating a new housing opportunity, because that may have been a rental to begin with. But 2 is to recognize that there are definitely circumstances where someone will convert a house into 2 units, and both of those units become for sale units as a condominium structure. Now, this is a great way to create new for sale product in the city that is pretty stinking affordable. So when you take a $180,000 house and you convert it to 2 units, and you're able to sell each of those new units after your renovation cost for something like $120,000 per condo unit, even if it's a 1-bedroom unit, that's a great entry point for a first-time homeowner. So thinking about it, it might be a townhouse, it might be attached condos, it might be a conversion of condos, but those conversions don't necessarily result in rentals. They can also result in homeownership. And that's where I'll leave that.
Ryan, is there any way that you can stick around or come back for our discussion? Because I can think of a couple of questions that I have, and I'm sure that planning commissioners have questions for you as well. Is that doable?
I'm going to do my best to come back. I've got another 5:30 meeting, which I don't expect to take too long, so I'll jump back on when that one's done.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brian.
And with that, I'll go back to our agenda, Brooke, and can start the meeting.
Sounds good. And we're going to do a roll call, correct?
Correct.
Okay. All right. Welcome everybody to the, what's the date today? The
February 9.
February 9, 2021 planning meeting. At this time, we will do a roll call, and we will to see who's present, and just state your name, that you're present, and where you are zooming from.
All right, first up is Van Antwerp.
Fred Van Antwerp. I'm in Holland, Michigan. I'm present for the meeting.
Blunt.
Andrew Blunt is present and attending via teleconference from Holland, Michigan.
Box.
Nathan Box, attending via teleconference from Holland, Michigan.
DeBlock.
Dave DeBlock, present via teleconference from Holland, Michigan.
Kenyon.
Andy Kenyon is present and attending via teleconference from Holland.
Lozano.
Luis Lozano is present and teleconferencing live from Holland, Michigan.
Owens.
Jennifer's muted.
I'll unmute her a minute.
There we go. Jennifer Owens, present, teleconferencing from Holland, Michigan.
Raymond.
Lynn Raymond is present and attending by teleconference from Holland, Michigan.
Ian Anderson.
Brooke Anderson is present and teleconferencing from Holland, Michigan. All right, approval of the minutes for January 12, 2021 and January 26, 2021 meetings.
So moved.
Support.
And all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Okay. Communications from the audience, 2 minutes max per person for items not listed as a public hearing on the agenda. I am going to get my timer a second. And if you would like to speak, if you could raise your hand digitally through the Zoom, or if you could raise your hand in person, and I will call on you. Mallory will unmute you. You will have to approve that unmuting and then state your name and address for the record. I see Warren Wortley. There you go, Warren.
Okay, you can hear me?
Yes.
Okay. My name, I go by Jay Wortley. I live at 311 West 12th Street. Last week, I had the pleasure of being part of a meeting with Mark Vanderploeg to discuss the proposed zoning changes to the TNR district. After more than an hour of open dialogue, Mark agreed that the responsible thing to do would be to delay any further action on the proposed changes to the TNR district until further study can be completed to assess the impact increased density of income property would have on this area, as well as the impact the significant amount of new rental property soon to become available in Holland will have on the housing market. The major issues discussed at this meeting were: one, the UDO is not a plan to just increase density in the TNR. It is a plan to narrowly increase the density of income property in an already high rental part of the city. Two, the proposed changes to the TNR would not increase affordable housing, as many believe. Three, the already dense TNR district would become more dense under the proposed changes, particularly due to the proposed 1/3 reduction in the minimum lot size needed for a duplex. Four, developers are already approaching homeowners in the TNR district to sell their property so they can be turned into income property. My block is already about 50% income property, and at least 2 homeowners in my block were contacted in just the last 2 weeks by 2 different developers who are interested in buying their property to convert to income property. These issues raise some important questions. 1, as planners, what are your goals for blocks like mine? 60% income property, 70% income property? What is your vision? 2, how will the TNR area change if income property investment increases and homeowner investment decreases?
Thank you, Warren.
Okay.
It looks like you have it all typed up. So as long as Mark has that, that would be good. I saw John Canfield. Did you have your hand up? You see him, Mallory? John Canfield. Yep, there we go, John.
Okay, John Canfield, 189 West 12th Street, the Tudor house across from the St. Francis Church. Some ideas. I'm wondering why there are so many people in these homeowner situations that are on the defensive. This has more to do with process. It seems to me that the current process, COVID restraint is really not, in my perspective, so much about dialogue. It isn't very collaborative. It's far more of a conversation that's trying to work towards a compromise. So I'm hoping, as the previous gentleman mentioned, that there's an opportunity to delay the decision making. So in fact, all the parties can get together to end up with a collaborative approach. Let's see here. One quote that might help there from Joseph Duran: people don't dislike change, they dislike being changed. And the more that the people who are resisting this can be involved in the clarification of the problem and as well as the solution, I think we'll have much better results. The second point is just to make sure that we maintain the things that we like about Holland. My wife, Sherry Dwyer, was noticing a number of articles in Google search about how we were highly rated, like the second most livable city in the United States next to Boulder, because of the way it is now. So to be very clear, what we want to preserve there. The other one, I'm wondering if we were to look at this a little differently. We're thinking that we have a housing problem. I'm wondering if we have a wage problem. Because if in fact we were able to move to $15 an hour, that would certainly change the affordability for many of the people who work in the Holland area. So I'm just wondering if the planning committee, along with some other people, might help them to begin to consider if in fact we can look at this differently. I guess that's probably about as much as I'd have to say in the time that you're providing. I'll you a letter.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening.
Yep. Oh, there we go. I see Gordon Wiersma. There we go.
You. Sorry, Matt and Kim. I think I jumped line in front of the DeYoungs there. I think they had their hand up first, but all right.
It all depends on which screen I'm on. So.
All right. Don't take that from my 2 minutes, please. Gordon Wiersma, 257 West 11th Street, and a pastor at Hope Church here in Holland. Making the rather odd comment of asking the Planning Commission and Council not to listen to my voice so much as set to direct you to listen to other voices than those that are loud and organized in our community right now. Like what I am, a white middle-class homeowner. We're good at being loud and organized. We have yards to put signs in, and we like keeping things the way they are because there's some privilege and advantage in that. And we happen to know that we usually get listened to by government and by places, so we trust that. There's plenty of voices in this community, particularly Black and Hispanic Latinx leaders who are very supportive of the UDO changes, the zoning changes. But those voices aren't always the ones that are the loudest and most organized. And so I really would urge that in a representative system as ours, it's not the loud and organized that should just get all of your attention, but you as leaders should be seeking out voices in our community. And it's my experience as I talk to leaders that I've gotten to know over 20 years here in Holland in the Black and Hispanic communities that to a huge degree there is support for these changes. And we need to ask why that is. If the opposition could be more about preserving privilege when what we should be doing is seeking to include more to be a part of the community that people are protecting, but perhaps not giving others the same sort of welcome and opportunities that they had, because our system is often built to promote and advantage white middle class homeowners. So I encourage you to do the work, not just in receiving those loud voices coming to you, but seeking out voices that I'm hearing from Black and Latinx residents and leaders that give such strong support to that. And that is compelling to me, and I hope so to you as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Matt and Kim DeYoung.
Yes, hello, thank you. Thanks for all your work. I'm also speaking to the UDO, and by the way, Kim reserves the right for her 2 minutes as well, so she's going to go right after me for another 2.
He does.
Yeah, thank you. So Kim and I moved here about 2 decades ago, and over the last 2 decades.
I'm sorry, did you state your name and address?
Oh, I'm sorry. Matt DeYoung, 200 West 12th Street.
Thank you.
Okay, so Kim and I moved here 2 decades ago, and during that time, the consistent message from the city has been a push to reclaim multi-unit dwellings and turn them back into owner-occupied single-family dwellings. It was obvious to us why, because when we moved here, we looked at living in the area we now live in, and there are quite a number of units that are decrepit and run down and owned. At some point, zoning went bad back in Holland, maybe in the 60s, and the slumlords took over. And you can tell which houses those are. We still have one on our block. If you walk down our block, you can see which one. There are 2 rental units. One of them is very nice, well-maintained, and one of them is owned by what I call a slumlord in his broken glass, torn screens, peeling paint, and so forth. So first of all, I'm just asking you to vote no on anything that will increase the density of the area and the number of rentals. And you have already heard from what's going to be the LDR zone, and they asked you not to increase density. You said okay and took that off the books. You heard from the cottage zone. They said, please don't increase density. You said okay and took that off the books. So there's really nothing different in the TNR zone. We don't want to have over density in our zone either. And I'm going to give you a few practical things to consider, just watching my time here, about what you need to look at. One is on the maps that you were shown in the last hour. The maps might be a little bit misleading because they don't show existing rentals if they aren't, quote, eligible properties. So it would be nice to superimpose all the existing rentals on each of the maps showing the options, and then you'll get a true picture of the full number of rentals that those changes would allow for. Secondly, I agree with Gordon, we need to have a plan for affordable housing, but I think it has to be a city or a region-wide plan. Right now, you've said okay to LDR, we won't do it there. You've said okay to cottage, we won't do it there. You're shoehorning it into TNR. Also should study the number of cars registered to TNR dwellings. Some of the homes around here have 6 cars and there's just not enough parking. And then owner occupied, what happens if they sell? Okay, I'm going to switch to my wife, Kim.
Okay.
Address.
Hi, same address, 200 West 12th Street. Thanks again for your hard work. I wanted to make the point here that according to Lynn Raymond and Jay Peters, everyone in our zone should have gotten communication card from the city letting them know about the proposed changes in zoning. I don't know of anyone in our zone who received a card. Maybe they have, but everyone that I've talked with has not received a card. Maybe that's one of the reasons that we seem to be late to the game to doing any kind of negotiating, where other zones seem to be ahead of us here. And also I want to say that I did speak with Mark Vanderplug, who really seems, in my impression, to understand the seemingly unfairness perhaps of our zone, considering that we're very much like the Hope neighborhood zone as far as density goes. And yet we are taking really the brunt of the increase in density. And I liked, what Mayor Bach said concerning the Meyer development. What about safety for kids and walkability? And I think it's important to remember that the core city right now in front of our homes is basically the parking lot. Whenever there's an event, a city event going on, whether it's in Collin Park, whether it's in Centennial Park, all the parades, people are parking in front of our homes. And you're wanting to increase the density, which is going to increase the number of cars and the number of traffic that we have when we already have people that are all over our sidewalks using them. And you're consider the idea of having gentle density when you looked at what's proposed, and what's proposed is four times the amount, considering duplexes from 171 units to 881 units. That's 4 times. It's an incredibly intensifying of the density. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. And thank you, Matt. Dale Hoskins.
Dale Hoskins, I live at 262 West 12th. I commend you for your hard work, but some aspects are troubling. Do you really believe the UDO will preserve our beloved historic character and charm? I really liked your landscaping and green infrastructure chapter. It was environmentally awesome. It's great work, but unfortunately it doesn't apply to my zone. Developers are free to buy our houses and convert our landscape and our trees into concrete and buildings. Do you really believe that your UDO will reduce vehicle miles? What Holland needs is an efficient public transportation. They also need, this will make life more affordable for people and allow more people to earn more money. We need green grocers scattered throughout the city rather than a few mini marts specializing in chips and beer. Do you really believe your UDO permits only a gentle density increase? I can look out my window through my window of my next door neighbor's house and see my neighbor 2 houses away. I have a tiny little backyard, and yet your UDO would allow me to build an ADU with a slab of concrete to hold another vehicle. Do you really believe that the UDO will offer affordable housing in our neighborhood? Of course not. Developers are already drooling at the opportunity to buy our houses so they can create multiple rental units. I assure you their rental prices won't be affordable. Right now, there's a townhome for sale on Maple asking $300,000. I love my neighborhood's racial and socioeconomic diversity. I know my neighbors well. The main problems I hear are from lower income tenants who are held hostage by their difficult and apathetic landlords. Their house is in serious disrepair, their landlords don't care, and the city does nothing. I'm grieved by the abuse I see. The Holland has no business expanding the number of rental properties in the TNR until they can ensure that landlords take care of their tenants in their property. We need a system that helps its landlords make a profit without neglecting or abusing their renters. And I have a note for the public. Please avoid insinuating any racist motivation to those who oppose any aspects of this UDO. Let's avoid publicly speculating on motives or comparisons of spiritual devoutness or justice. Back to the city. Please back off your densification efforts and process a sensible UDO.
Thank you.
We get to live here, and I want to keep it that way. Thank you.
Just a comment first. Nobody can pave more than 50% of their backyard, right, Jenna? Yes. Okay. So
Right.
we can't just throw pavement all over anyone's backyard. And did we do something?
Just to specify, that's just in the RTRN zone district.
Okay, gotcha. And what do we got here? Nancy? There we go.
Okay, thank you. I'm Nancy Stahl. I live at 121 West 12th Street. My husband and I moved in, and next door is a rental unit. And so having a rental unit right next door to us has made me more aware of problems that might occur. And I've written 2 times to the Planning Commission and have not received an answer to these questions. So I'm going to ask them a 3rd time. My number 1 question is, how many cars will be allowed per unit? Right now, our rental unit next door has up to 8 cars. And if you have 8 cars per unit, that's going to be a mess. The other thing is that I think is unique to the historic district is that the property lines are very old, obviously. And for example, to get ready to do some landscaping at our house, we figured out the property lines. Our property line is a foot under our neighbor's driveway. So I think a special consideration needs to go for the historic district. Also, my other question that has not been answered is what will be the distance from property lines for driveways? For example, next door is a very, very narrow driveway, and you get 8 cars in that narrow driveway, they don't fit. So there's a lot of parking on the streets. And also we can't enjoy our little side porch because it's like a parking lot right next door. I mean, really right on top of us. So I think there's some practical questions that need to be answered before we go forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. Right now, rental units have 1 car required, 1 space required per unit.
That's not legal to provide a maximum.
Right. And Jenna, we are allowed to park on the streets, correct?
For half of the year, 24 hours a day, but yes, during the, yes, and that's a council policy decision.
Okay. Jeff? Pappenheimer. Mallory will unmute you and then there we go. Great.
Hi, my name is Jeff Pappenheimer. I live at 5959 124th Street in Fenville, Michigan. 4 years ago, I sold my home on 595 Columbia Avenue because I was concerned about the direction Holland was headed. This rezoning and the petition that supports it is an absolute farce, completely void of any factual evidence, despite its claim of adequate planning. Sometimes good is the enemy of the best, and by definition, adequate means good enough. And anyone that supports this rezoning is declaring in one loud voice that Holland doesn't deserve the best planning. It only deserves good enough planning. Critically important for incremental adjustments, then later says we don't need a lot, only 2 to 3%. If all that is needed is 2 to 3%, why not make that your cap? Otherwise, it's like putting your mouth on a garden hose, trusting the person on the other end not to open it full blast. You cannot trust people to regulate themselves. Thomas Paine said in his 1776 book, A Common Sense, that government is a necessity, a necessary evil, because man cannot be trusted to be guided by moral virtue alone. In 2006, my wife and I bought our 2-bedroom, 1-bath home on Columbia Avenue that I mentioned for $60,000. Our mortgage with escrow was $600 a month. Breaking out of the cycle of being stuck in a less than adequate rental home and becoming a homeowner and newlywed was the happiest memory of my life. It brings me much sadness to know with certainty that if passed, this rezoning will deplete the supply of single-family homes, making it harder for people of all ethnic backgrounds to have the joy of affordable home ownership and to know what it's like to take pride in your home and have that ability. That's something that everybody deserves to have, and that's something that everybody could definitely use, especially in these times. And I just wanted to share that with you guys. I thank you very much for allowing me time to speak, and that's all I have.
Thank you, Jeff. Stacy Hurd. Oh, there we go. Stacy, there we go.
Okay. Hi, I'm Stacy Hurd. I live at 230 West 11th Street. I've been made aware of a letter circulating among residents in our neighborhood, which implicitly accuses anyone in opposition of the UDO zoning changes of being racist by providing data from the Census Bureau, which estimates that the non-white Hispanic or Latino, that the white non-Hispanic Latino population occupies about 82% of all owner-occupied housing units and 65% of rental units in Holland. They argue that limiting an increase in rental properties will limit growth of the non-white population. I see so many flaws in that argument, though. Seeing that 82% of owner-occupied housing is owned by the white non-Hispanic population, which represents 67% of the total population of Holland, does not make me think that we need to increase rentals. This leads me to think that we need to focus on programs and ways to support the non-white population to give them more opportunities to be able to own their own home. Increasing the supply of rental properties, therefore decreasing the supply of single-family owner-occupied homes, is discriminatory. That is saying that the current rates of home ownership among the non-white population is acceptable and should not change, nor should they aspire to break out of the rental cycle. Reducing the supply of single-family homes reduces future opportunities. This issue has nothing to do with race. It has nothing to do with pitting homeowners against renters. It has everything to do with those who have money to buy and convert homes and those who do not. Most conversions will not be by your average homeowner seeking to gain a little extra income or house an extended family member. Most conversions will happen when out-of-town developers buy up and convert entire blocks and rent at an unaffordable rates. The sharks smell blood in the water with the money to be made in Holland. Neighbors are already getting letters from out-of-town developers. Is this the future we want for Holland?
Thank you, Stacy.
Thanks.
Stacy, I got some information from somebody else that lives near you about developers. Can you send those pictures of those or information to Jenna, please? And she can send them to the rest of us. Okay? Because I live like 2 blocks from you and I have not gotten anything in the historic district. So I'm just curious And I don't know if the rest of the planning commission is, but we'd like to see those. Let's see here. I see Dr. Vicki Lynn Holmes over on 17th Street. I know where you are. We used to live on 18th, and you came around passing out mints when you guys moved in. There we go.
That is true.
Yes.
Lynn Holmes, 68 West 17th Street, Holland. And while I'm chair of the Human Relations Commission, I'm in no way speaking at all or representing them. This is just me. So I'm not against zoning per se. What I have are some caveats, and I want some more information because I'm getting mixed messages and misleading information. For one, I am for it if it was everything was owner occupied and there was no loopholes that could have people not be owner occupied. Now I'm talking about for rentals. If you convert and sell, then those will be owner occupied. But for rentals, I'm concerned. So I want to know, are there any loopholes anywhere that you can be not there and still rent your place? Because that leads to slumlords, and I would vote no for that, though I have no voice to vote no. The other one is this is an experiment. And earlier, someone said that they're going to monitor and see like the cap for how many rentals. But then I read that it's 3 years. That is every 3 years you're going to look at something. That's way too long for an experiment. If it's gone bad, it will be stuck in that bad and there'll be no recourse. So it shouldn't be every 3 years. Parking and noise. I hear about the parking and the noise problems, and I don't mind that because sometimes you have to sacrifice for the good if where it's shown that the good of having these diverse economic neighborhoods promotes greatness. And I just would like to see more that tells me that it does, because I'm for that if it does. And this is not racial, this is economic we're talking about. So I think we need to stop saying racial. This is not promoting racial equity. And the last thing is, I read that there was this clause that said, in essence, that you do listen to speakers, but if it's going against a goal of the city planning or I can't remember exactly what it was, then it doesn't have to be taken into account. So I'd like some clarity on that because we trust you in the city council to represent us. So our voices do need to be heard. Thank you.
Thank you. And Melanie Beckman. I give you credit, Melanie, for getting away from 3 kids in your house.
They're making dinner. We'll see how that goes.
Go ahead.
So thank you, Planning Commission, for the work that you're doing and for hearing us today. I want to echo John Canfield. Oh, am I still muted?
State your name and address.
Oh, sorry. Melanie Beckman, 209 West 12th. I just want to echo John Canfield and also Dr. Vicki Lynn. John, I completely agree with you as far as the changes that are happening. I feel like we're having to really seek out what's going on, and we're having to seek out the intents and the purposes. And I'd really love to hear more from the Planning Commission. This is my plea to you as a commission to extend the timing and to really get us on board with this, to really show us how this is going to benefit, how this is going to improve. I'm seeing a lot of, for lack of better words, just speculation on how this could go and maybe we should try this or do this, but I would really like to see a plan for the way it will positively impact and benefit our city. I just don't know that it will be affordable for the people who need housing, and I just don't, I'm not seeing it. I'm just not convinced. I'm not seeing that this will be something that will be a positive thing for people who need the housing or for the people who are now going to live in higher density situation. And there's a lot of passion for this. Obviously, there is a lot of passion because we love living here and we love the city, and we hope that we can continue to make the city a great place to live. And that's why so many people are caring about this. But also, as the planning commission and the city council, we need to make sure that we're doing things that will continue to make the city a great place to live and not do anything that might jeopardize that or might take us back to where we were 20, 30 years ago, and trying to get our neighborhoods stabilized to where they are now today. I'd hate to see anything jeopardize that. Thank you.
Thanks, Melanie. I see Lynn Burns. There we go, Lynn.
Hi, thank you. My name is Lynn Burns. I live at 457 Mercado Court. My husband and I moved to Holland back in 2018. And we moved here from San Jose, California, which when I moved there 35 years ago was a lovely, lovely city. And we lived in different homes throughout that area. When we received the email about the possibility of upzoning, the alarm bells started going off in my head. Because as I read about the very real possibility of losing our single family home areas in Holland, all I could think about was our neighborhood in San Jose. The memories of having to drive around our block of multi-million-dollar homes looking for a parking place because of mother-in-law units that had been built in the backyards of many of the homes. People who lived in apartment buildings 2 and 3 blocks away came to park in front of our homes because there was no parking available for them at their apartments. And multi-generational families lived in apartments that were designed for 4 people. And you can imagine the number of cars that were connected with a multi-generational family. And if you don't think that can happen in Holland, you're sorely mistaken. The other thing that happened is that we had beautiful 90-year-old architectural gems, like in the historic district here in Holland. They were being torn down to build 0 lot line 2-story homes. They blocked out the sun and any sort of view that might have existed. And I have never seen a place where I wanted and expected to live for the rest of my life change so drastically in such a short period of time. So it only takes people moving out of their homes and new owners coming in and making exactly the types of changes that your city council is promoting. I am asking you, begging you, and the other city council members to please consider, from a person who has gone through the heartbreak of having to leave a place we loved because of the very negative changes that these types of changes bring about, to not change R1 to LRD or any other acronym or legal term that makes it easier for the city staff and homeowners to have rental properties in or near their residences. I believe each space and situation should be looked at individually.
Thank you, Lynn.
Yep.
I used to live in Santa Monica, so I don't know why we moved to this weather, huh? I see Donna Short. Donna Short with her hand up. Donna, you'll probably have to, Mallory will unmute you, but then you have to give that permission. There we go.
Okay, this is Mike Short again.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's Donna and Mike, and we're both here. We live at 810 Myrtle on the southwest side of Holland. I'm going to try and speak from the heart. I'm rather slow of speech, so I hope I can get it all out in 2 minutes. We moved here back in 1993 from a suburb of Chicago called Skokie and Evanston, Illinois, very close to the city of Chicago. We grew up, both of us, very much Chicagoan type people, but we had 25-foot lots, okay, with alleys behind so that they could take away the waste and the refuse. We moved here from a townhome where we had 25 by 25 square foot unit, 8 of them on a property. We didn't have more than a 20-foot backyard. We moved here and bought a 1.4 acre property for the same amount that we had spent in Chicago. That was just a wonderful thing. We were allowed to be in a city with a rural look at the southwest end of Michigan or Holland. And to think that we're going with what is a UDO, I see it as a lazy type of planning. You allow developers to come in, they don't have to permit the same things they had to do with R1, R2, R3. They say it's less forms. But what you did was you controlled the environment. Now, the suburb that we lived in was well organized. The streets were well organized. People had garages, the alleyways, they had refuse taken away. All of those things were very, very valuable to a good city plan. Okay, and we had high density, but we love our low density and we love the green space that we look at. With 1.4 acres, we're faced with the possibility of single family home having up to 6 units on it. That's not the way to do zoning as far as I can see it. I just don't understand why a program like this would come about. I'd like to keep talking, but I think I've said just about as much as I want to. I thank you for the work, but I don't like the plan.
Thank you, Mr. Short. Lisa Caston. There we
Hi,
go.
thank you for allowing me this time. In the letters and petitions that I've recently viewed from those in favor of the UDO zoning changes, there's often this talk about caring for the most needy in our community, which is exactly what we should be doing.
Lisa?
One of the letters even went so far as to say that those of us, yeah.
Can you state your name and address? I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm so sorry, Brooke. Lisa Caston, 206 West 11th Street. Sorry, Mallory, I know I messed you up.
It's okay, go ahead.
Okay. One of the letters recently went so far as to say that those of us who oppose some of these zoning changes are limiting the growth of Holland's non-white population. I just have some thought process that I've been going through, but I'm not sure how it is caring for those most needy in our community when we are keeping them dependent in an endless cycle of rental properties where they pay high costs, which we know are often 60 to 70% of their income. These zoning changes will reduce single family housing stock. So when these rental tenants are ready to escape this cycle, and they're working hard to do that, they will not be able to invest in their own future because there will be more people fighting for the same lower reduced single family housing. And who's going to get that housing? It's going to be the people who are able to offer above asking price. It's not going to be the person who's just looking to get out. I'm sorry, but the logic used to support the zoning changes is not going to help the most vulnerable by saying that they're only good enough for us to provide them more rental options. Shouldn't we be finding ways to give them better, not more of the same? They deserve an opportunity to break out of the cycle and make their money support their future and have a real options available to them, not just rentals. What I'm also seeing is many of my neighbors, which was mentioned earlier, are getting letters, postcards, texts received. I have copies of all of those from developers and realtors that are out of town. They're offering cash, all cash, as is, 5-day closings. They want to zip these up immediately. I'm just not sure who do you want to own Holland? Do you want it to be the people that live and invest their lives here or to be developers? There are currently 1,197 units of housing that are coming down the line right now or in the next 1 to 3 years, and that's only the ones that I've kept track of.
Thank you, Lisa.
Oh, I had one important thing.
I'm sorry.
It's really bad. It was my main thing. Sorry.
Send it to Mark and he will send it to the rest of us. Or planningcomment@cityofholland.com. Okay. Jim DeBoer? There we go.
Hey, Jim DeBoer, 157 West 40th Street. I'll talk as fast as I can to try to make this in 2 minutes. Wow. We basically are dealing with a philosophical difference, a difference in what balance is in the R1 LDR and TNR neighborhoods. We simply feel that the pursuit you're on will take us on a path of imbalance between single family and rental homes. You've never heard so many against this, with hundreds of emails from neighbors, past city council members, mayors, planning commissioners. Now, as of the last 2 weeks, From around the city, people are receiving letters, postcards, texts, phone calls, even knocks on their door from realtors wanting to buy their home with cash offers in 5 days. It's happening now and will only grow if approved. It's amazing. There are 300 homeowners on the anti-zoning petition. There are hundreds of signs around the community in the middle of winter. If you do a trial project, we're all stuck with the results of the trial. You can't roll it back. Who evaluates it? Holland's tried that before when McGeehan was early in office. Read his Christmas letter to the paper. What the city tried 3 to 4 decades ago in allowing additional rentals didn't work, and council did what they could to roll it back with little success. If you repackage it, it's really repeating errors in the past and expecting a different result. On Sunday, I talked to a man who lives near us. He's against the proposal, even has a sign against it, but he has a quote to convert his house and he'll rent it if it goes through and live part of the year in Florida. He will be sure to be around whenever the 3-year inspection happens. So much for homeowner occupied. Please pull TNR and LDR off the UDO before you present it to council. Thank you.
Thank you. Dan Ackerman. There we go.
Thank you. I too am frustrated and mostly offended by people trying to portray the fact that I'm not in favor of the UDO and this conversation as some sort of racist or homeowner rant. I live on a short street in the Maplewood area, 22 Bellwood Drive, that has gone through numerous moments of rezoning. Condos went up in our backyard in 1997, and we walked through it with the city. 2 years ago, we walked through the rezoning on East 40th Street. Again, a condo project in which we had to walk through and fight the city to maintain the character of our neighborhood. I live on this short street with about 12 to 14 people I know well because of those two events. Here's who they are. It contains 2 homes owned by women who maintained ownership through their divorces. 2 homes were bought directly by women immediately after divorces. 3 homes are owned by Latino families. 2 homes are owned by people under the age of 30, 1 single and 1 young family, and 2 to 3 of them are old folk like me, empty nesters who've been around. All of that diversity happened on this street and turned over this street under R1 with no help from the UDO. Currently, the only good outcome from the UDO in our neighborhood is that I can take my ranch and with very little financing, probably about 20 to 25,000, I can turn it into a 2/3, 1/3 thing and start gathering my rent. And no one can stop me because not in my backyard is not allowed. We learned that both times we talked to the city. So once you set these rules, no one can say, well, that doesn't fit with my backyard. You're going to say, oh no, we don't listen to those people. They're just NIMBYs. I've been called that. I understand that. I've been against the city more than once. So at this point, I want to ask you, all the diversity occurred on my street over the last 20 years. I know these people. I've watched them moved in. My daughters have babysat the younger ones. How is what you're doing going to enhance that diversity?
Thank you, Dan. I have a question for you though.
Yep.
Are you talking about the condos that are right at the corner of US 31 and Central?
No, I'm talking about the ones that are at East 40th Street. They're going up right now in the old property there.
You said something about 20 years ago though?
No. Maplewood Village is going up right now.
Yeah. And then the other one?
The other one are the condos behind us, Trillium, right along US 31. There were 97 to 99 build.
And those were a negative impact on your neighborhood?
Well, if you count the fact that I used to have woods behind me and now I have 3 decks looking down in my backyard because, and here's the good news, when they put up the proposal, they said they were going to put trees in to build the berm. They put trees in, but guess what? The trees died after 5 years, and I cannot force the current people to put the trees back in. So the trees that stayed are 20 feet tall and give me privacy. The ones that died were never replaced, and there are 3 decks looking in my backyard, which is exactly what we talked to the city about when you wanted to build it in the first place, that these large decks would be in our backyard.
Thank you.
And this is the problem. You can't do anything once you put rules in. You okayed their ability to move in. Once you gave them occupancy, I can't force them to put trees back in and give me my privacy back.
Okay.
So by the way, I've received 2 cards to buy my house. I didn't save either of them, but I will save the next one.
Mallory. Thank you. Jason Teresi. There we go.
Thank you. I appreciate the time.
State your name and address.
54 Linden Road. I just went through this. I moved in Laketown Township. We went to 2 town hall meetings. We discussed it at length. Everyone had these wonderful arguments, just like everyone here. And the city council just didn't care. There's money to be made. I hate to be the negative guy here, but it's going to happen. Unfortunately, I don't want it to, but the city council is probably going to approve it. And like this other gentleman was just saying, once they come in and they say, oh, these are our plans, they lied about their plans. And then they changed their plans. And because they're already let in and the rezoning has already happened, they were allowed to change their plans again. There was a fire chief who said it won't work, and they let it go in anyway. In Laketown Township, on the corner of, I lived on Pine Drive over there, so it was 140th or 146th and whatever. That was a big field for growing stuff, and they just put up these huge, ugly things that now are rentals, and it congested the neighborhood. So, thanks. I appreciate the time.
Thank you. All right. Mallory, are you good?
Yep, I don't see anybody else or any other hands.
Okay. Oh, Dwayne Coyers stuck it up at the last second. Okay, Mallory, you can unmute Dwayne. There we go.
There, I'm live?
Yes.
Good enough? Well, first I got to thank you for the effort in the maps and evaluation of what the changes would do to the TRN.
Dwayne, can you state your address, please?
Okay, sorry, forgot that. I should know that drill. Dwayne Coyers, 89 West 12th Street.
You're good.
I want to thank you for the effort in getting that information together. I hope it enlightens some people. And got a little attention to just how big a change that opens the door to. You've heard from a lot of the other people about once you open up the door and let the rules change, how hard it is to back them off again. So kind of words wise scenario there. And you've heard from others pushing the home ownership, and that goes right back to the original planning goal. I think the tail end of that says something about encourage owner-occupied housing. Occupancy or ownership by transient, disrespectful, or non-investing individuals to be discouraged. Last line of the potential action steps from the master plan of 2017. And I think you heard that from a lot of other people too. So the last one, we again, maybe it'd be a good idea to extend the cycle on this. You've been working on this change for about the last 3 years. With another few months, heard anything? I guess that kind of sums it up. So thank you.
Thank you. Teresa H.
Hi. Are we good?
Yep.
Very good. I'm Teresa Harrington at 644 Apple Avenue. And I just have to add my 2 cents here that we do need to take some more time to consider carefully what's going to happen, get more community input. I'm feeling right now pretty angry. I've spent, I've put a couple kids through the schools, and it's people like us who have made this city such an award-winning city. You know, I've spent 20 years getting children through Tulip Time festivals that bring a lot of money to this city. And, you know, the things that we do because we invest here, we care about it, we're part of this. And when we buy a residential home in a neighborhood, we expect that to be something that we can count on and not to have it change out from underneath us. I'm not feeling protected by my city right now. I'm not feeling valued by my city right now. I do not believe at all that these proposals will yield affordable housing. Not one bit do I believe that. I want to know that my city values what we have been giving to it all these years. The amount of volunteer hours that people like us put into this city that again make it the great city that it is. I have nothing else to say other than say you need to look out for our interests here too. We are part of what made this city great. Thank you.
Thank you, Teresa. P. Tucker. P. Tucker. There we
Okay,
go.
Sorry.
State your name and address for the record.
It's Phil Tucker, 391 West 31st Street. And so thank you for your time. I'm coming in a little late to this conversation, so I apologize if I'm asking some questions that have already been addressed by the Planning Commission. But I trust that you looked at a wide range of other markets and the impact that similar rezoning programs had on things like the value of single family homes and vehicle density and that sort of thing. If you haven't, then I'd really strongly recommend that you consider postponing any decisions. I think there's also a lot of people who are still really unaware of the plan. And I think some of that is due to the wording, words like conversion, upzoning. I think that's quite confusing to a lot of people. And I think you really need to just call it what it is. It's owner-occupied duplexes, triplexes, etc. Right? Let's just call it what it is. And I think we'd just get folks with a far better understanding weighing into this conversation. So I think a lot of people are just not aware of what's going on. And I think there needs to be more education. If this goes through as it is, I think there's going to be a lot of homeowners who are quite upset. And I'm sure that's not what you want. So my vote would be that you postpone this until you get better information available, and then also better buy-in from the community. Thank you for all your hard work.
Thank you. And just for clarification, I hope nobody thinks we're voting on this tonight. So we're still making changes. So if you have more recommendations for changes, then we will hear it. Denise? It says iPhone. There we go. She found you.
Hi, Denise Byer, 996 Colonial Court. I know I've attended most of your Zoom meetings. I'm joining late tonight. Sorry, I had to work, but I did send another email in today, and I guess I'm a little disappointed that I don't ever hear any answers back. So I'm just going to throw it out there again. One, I feel like the plan that you have in place right now is moving us towards the city that looks like South Haven. And it's a great tourist town. It has tons of rentals. It has no place to park. It has lots of tourism. I want Holland to remain as a city of families and residences. I have a different feel than South Haven with all their rentals and their crowded parking. And they have even more parking that's necessary than your proposed plan. So that's one of my concerns. I also want to backtrack into the December meetings of the PC meeting that talked about that if the zoning goes through, there'll still be the opportunity to appeal to the zoning board. And it was mentioned back then, and has never come up again, that the likelihood of you changing your mind about allowing something that's the zoning has changed to something that the neighbors object to will not happen. You've already said legally that you guys will be bound to what the new homeowners have as far as our zoning goes, whether it fits with the character of the neighborhood or not, because legally that person that is buying the new property has those rights. So I wish that that would be made a little more clear again, because it sounds like, well, if we don't like it, we can make sure that, you know, the residents are upset that they'll that you'll change your mind and it won't go in. And I just don't think that's being very upfront about it, as it's kind of scooted under the carpet, not come up in conversation again. And then lastly, everyone has asked that the PC put some brakes on this, that we wait till the pandemic is over. And I've never heard a response to that, why that can't be done. So I'm asking, I'd love an answer to why they're pushed to push this through right now and not hear from more people, and just let more people have input that aren't technology savvy and are out of town for the winter. So that's what I'd love to just have addressed. Thanks for listening.
Thanks, Denise. All right. And Bob Suiters. There we go. State your name.
Hi, I'm Bob Suiters. I'm at 173 Una Vista Drive in Holland Heights. And I'm just going to read a short letter that I did send to Mayor Box, Nathan, and to the commission. To whom it may concern, my wife and I have lived in Holland Heights for 20 years. We moved here because of the quiet neighborhood and a great place to raise a family. We would not have moved here if it wasn't zoned R1. We're against the proposed change from R1 residential in our neighborhood as well as across the city as a blanket. So much so that we would consider moving out of the city if this passes. Thank you for hearing our voice of concern. We ask that you do the right thing and keep our R1 neighborhoods as it is. Signed, Robert and Brenda Suiters, same address. And you know, I don't get too worked up over things. I've been to a couple of commission meetings. One was in Zealand for business thing. One was in Holland for Leadership West Michigan. This one kind of has taken me by surprise on the level of concern by a lot of citizens. If you drive down Una Vista, there's no zoning signs than there was political signs in November. So this is clearly a hot button issue. I would just encourage you to slow down, back up, take things one step at a time, maybe try some areas to see how it works. But like many people said, you can't, once something goes forward, you can't take it back. So that's my encouragement to you, to take the consideration of the citizens in mind and to take things slowly with this. It's a slippery slope. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Jim. Jim in a green shirt.
Okay, I'm unmuted. Hello. Just real quickly. I'm sorry, Jim Skipper, 901 Chelsea Court, just south of 32nd Street. I've appreciated all the comments. My concern is I don't know how the people in the Planning Commission that are going to vote on this can do that in clear conscience. You're going to take neighborhoods where people are personally living there. They've invested their life savings. It's their lifestyle. They have friends and family. And you're going to unilaterally change the rules and regulations that's going to change their neighborhood. And they have nothing to say about it. It's going to affect them financially. It's going to affect them lifestyle. And yet you feel that you can make a change that's going to affect them. And I just don't see how you can do that in clear conscience. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Linda Falstead. Hi, Linda. Mallory's going to unmute you here a second. There you go. State your name and address. I know you know how this goes.
I do. I'm Linda Falstad, and I live at 152 Birchwood. And I'm going to start with a short letter, and then I'm going to share a story. I'll send the letter off to the Planning Commission and the mayor. I'm pleased with the outcome of our master plan for the city of Holland, as I was part of the process. And I want to thank all of you on Planning Commission for your time, because I know how much time it takes to be on the Planning Commission. The guiding principle of the master plan is inviting all to enjoy a thriving and resilient Holland. Land use is governed locally by zoning. Holland has traditionally used functional zoning such as residential, commercial, or industrial zoning. Now suddenly our city planners want to blanket the city with intensity zoning, such as high, medium, or low density housing. My husband and I bought a house in Holland after first renting and saving our money. Our home is our biggest and best investment. We bought into a neighborhood that we liked and we could afford. We raised our family here. I want to share a story that Lisa Kasten and I both know the same story because we both do the same kind of work. I'm the founder of Heights of Hope and she works for Westcor. And we know of families who have lived in motels and moved from that motel to a rental apartment and have saved their money and are looking forward to staying here in Holland, Michigan, to buy a home and stay here where they feel is their home. And my question to you is, how will this benefit families like this? So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Linda. All right. All right, Mallory. I think we're good there. Jenna? I'm getting my.
We did just get one hand up.
Oh.
Joe.
Joe Arevalo. He lives one block over from me, I'm seeing. Oh, sorry. There you go.
Hi. Hi, sorry to sneak in at the end there.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Joe Ravelo. I live at 137 West 15th Street, and I'll just be real brief. I just want to thank Brian Kilpatrick for the presentation he did earlier today. It was really informative, and I think it's especially important for people listening to know that in the conversions in the RTRN district, a point he made that they can still be made into condos and sold. So just because they would be subdivided, there is still the possibility that they could contribute towards more home ownership in the city. So thanks for all the work you're doing.
Thank you, Joe. All right. So moving on to 2021 Planning Commission elections for chair and vice chair. Unless anyone else has anything else that they wanted to input. It's very quiet out there for my commission members.
Yeah, a lot of them muted themselves, so I'm trying to unmute them quickly.
Yeah, unmute the commission members. We'll take a minute there and do that. I am curious from commission members if you have gotten any developer mailings or texts.
No.
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 No, but I'm kind of curious to see kind of what information they're receiving or phone calls or whatever it may be. So
I know, in texts, I'm very surprised.
As long as I've been a homeowner, Brooke, I get periodic postcards and mailers from realtors and developers, but I haven't seen any change in any of that.
Right, I have too. I've gotten some from local realtors just like offering to help me sell my home. But not every
I also get those.
all those pesky realtors, what do they do?
Yeah, those pesky realtors, Louise.
But yeah, I'm kind of curious to see if it really is intentional and where, if it's being focused on an area or if it's just a standard, I sold your house in the neighborhood, you know, I'm looking to see if I can help, but they're being very specific that they're cash buyers being able to purchase their property right now. So I think that's what, not the red flag, but I think that's what made it a little different for me than normal.
Yeah, and certainly the staff, you know, hasn't done anything to try to increase investment or purchases of homes, properties. So
No, and that's not the intent of this either.
Exactly.
All right. So, is everybody unmuted? We're good there? Okay.
Hey, Brooke.
Yes.
So Mark here. I don't know why this didn't occur to me beforehand, but I'm looking at the old business item here. And Jenna, maybe you can help me with this too. So I think we're going to need to have the Planning Commission vote on with a separate motion the infill review.
The site plan and the infill separate?
Yeah, so they're kind of under two separate sections of the ordinance. So perhaps that would be best to kind of separate those. So to maybe do an item C on there for the infill review.
Okay, making that change now. First, though, we have elections.
Yeah. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. That was just a point of order on the agenda then. So excuse me.
Oh, that's okay.
Should there be a vote to amend the agenda?
That's
A
probably
vote to,
technically required. Yeah.
a
I'll
vote to
support that.
amend
I'll support that.
All those in favor, say aye.
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 Anybody opposed?
Brooke, are you willing to be nominated to be our chairperson?
I don't think I really get to say, so I think that you guys get
Then
to.
consider yourself nominated.
I second that.
Nobody wants this job? Anybody else campaigning?
I think it has more.
You're doing such a great job. You're doing a great job.
I
Being
do
that
need to mention that Fred Van Antwerp had to get off of the call because he wasn't feeling well. So
Okay.
So for vice chair, I'm not.
We can
That means we
elect
vote
you.
for him, right? That's what happens if you leave.
We can
You
elect-
get
That's what
stuck.
happens. That's what
That's
happens
for
when
sure.
you walk away.
For sure.
Having said that, though, just keep in mind that his second term is expiring in June. Though, is it 3 terms, Mark?
Yes. So really, he's expiring in June.
Yeah.
How could that be?
His term is expiring in June.
No, but how could
Yeah,
that
not
be?
I don't know. I mean, that's what he had emailed that to me.
Well, if we want to make, Jennifer Owens vice chair, or
I'm still learning, so I think it would be you, and I think Brooke is chair and Fred is vice chair would be a really solid choice.
Exactly. So
you will
I
have
guess-
learned by June then, right, Jennifer?
I move we close nominations.
I support that. All in favor of the nominated candidates? Brooke, do you get to run the meeting that elects you?
I don't know.
Go ahead. Just ask for a vote.
Everybody in favor of the current nominations, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? No, okay. Moving on.
Okay, so is that, I'm sorry, to clarify, was that just for chair or was that for both chair?
That was both.
That was both.
It was a unanimous voice vote for both.
Okay, so I guess if Fred's not okay with it, we'll have to bring it back.
Yep.
That would be a B and F.
Okay. Thanks, Dave. Old business. Letter A, 173 West 20th Street. Rezoning recommendation to City Council from RTRN, Traditional Residential Neighborhood, to PRD, Planned Unit Residential
And
Development.
residential development.
And residential development for a 6-dwelling unit church conversion and site development. Applicant is Seth Coughing.
Yes, and I'll just do a brief introduction if that's all right. And then turn it over to the applicant if they have anything to add. So I do want to point out a couple of changes that are being proposed to the site plan. So they have put back 2 parking spaces on the north side here. If you recall, there was a change because they were needing to initially expand this island so that they would have more room for.
Jenna, can you show your screen, please?
That would be great. if I did that. I apologize. I thought I was. Thank you for
Do we have
saying
to,
that.
was this tabled before too? Do we have to remove it or no? Did we?
Not until we open the public hearing, or how does that, reopen?
I couldn't remember if we tabled it or not, so.
You did table it, but I don't think that you need to reopen it until, I don't know, either way, it's up to you.
Public hearing was tabled, not the discussion, correct?
They were both tabled, I think.
Yeah.
We'll remove them right after Jenna.
Perfect.
So they had originally thought to expand this island, and they had it as a trash area, dumpster, or refuge bins. But then we discussed it further, and instead they're proposing now rolling garbage cart areas. We talked about probably 12 would be needed, 2 per unit, since recycling will soon get another cart per the trash company. So they've added these little spaces, and you can see small here. It says that they would be on pervious pavers. So thinking that those will be like grass pavers, so that they'll be hard, durable surfaces, but not take away from the aesthetic of the side here or from stormwater management on the perimeter of the building. So we're happy with that. Then they're also able to make this island a little bit smaller and have it really more as a landscaping item rather than having it utilized for anything. They have also added the trees at 30 feet per measured at the middle along the frontage of Maple, which we're happy about. They have also proposed a different lighting source, which I'll let them speak to. And that was per the conversation at last month's meeting. And finally, we're very happy with the landscaping plan and really the traffic circulation and parking that is being proposed here. So with that, either Seth or Ed, I guess Valerie, if you could unmute both of them. Ed Z, actually I see him, so I'll ask him to unmute.
They're both they should be both unmuted.
Okay, perfect.
Yep. Sorry, this is Seth coughing. I'm here. If there's anything further you guys need from me, feel free to ask, but there's nothing further I'd like to add outside of what was discussed last meeting.
Thank you, Jeff.
Does someone want to speak, Ed, perhaps to the newly proposed lighting source and how it's different than what was proposed previously?
Yeah, I can speak to that one. So we had selected a light that met minor resistance, just for the type of light. So what we selected, and I don't know if you can zoom to that lower right-hand corner, more of a classic light fixture, which is only down lighting in nature. Yeah, you have to go even lower, the lower right-hand corner. So instead of, I'm looking at the screen, it's kind of fun, like a video game here. So it would be a light, the lower left-hand corner, sorry. There we go. So what we would do is pick a fixture, and if I could say similar to this, I'll say that, that is downlight only, just enough to light the area when you come in and out of the residence. And again, I did read through some of the staff comments on this, and we will provide additional lighting calcs on this one since we don't have that yet. But you can just see it'll probably be even less than the one we picked out before because it's all down lighting in nature. So that would be the one change that we did do. And again, along with the parking to add that one parking space back and make that island more green space instead of an enclosure for garbage. So those would be the only two revisions that we did make for the plan.
And just to mention, just to add, that a condition of approval is a photometric plan, which would show that their foot candles don't exceed 0.5 at all the property lines.
Yeah, thanks, Ed. I like the look of that fixture a lot more, and I think the lighting calcs shouldn't be a problem.
I fully agree.
All right. Any other questions? Yes, Lynn.
I know that I think Brian recommended that you change the direction of the traffic to cut down on the vehicle lights hitting houses across the street, but I see that you didn't make that change. Could you talk a little bit as to why?
Yeah, I can take that one. So even with the review, and maybe staff might answer this one better as well, just the dynamic of how the alleyway to the north is actually set up now not incorporates, but actually gives a better flow for the in and out. So I know we had talked about the one house that is across the street, but as far as traffic coming in and out and how you get in and out and that corner as it's used right now, this is the best flow. And I do know that Holland City did hand this out to the rest, and it was also approved with this layout. So we spoke about it, but it is actually better. It's actually the best laying out this way, where cars pulling in actually do pull into the building, and all the lights then will be trapped and don't shine on anybody.
Okay.
So as far as the overall, we spoke about it, but this is the most efficient way of getting the parking incorporated into this lot.
Any other
questions? And planning staff would agree with that estimation.
Thanks, Jenna.
Yeah, Brooke, I would like to ask the developer if in fact they would be willing to work with the city to eliminate the angle parking on the street. And in fact, add green space where we currently would expect a, what do you call that? The parkway?
The existing public parking that's there.
Yeah, exactly.
Jenna, do you want to speak to that? Or Mark?
Well, it's not their department, but if the developer is willing to work with the city, when we go for the zoning change, we can.
Yeah, so again, this needs to go through the traffic committee.
Exactly.
So Mark, maybe you can speak to that more.
Yeah, so the city does have a separate traffic committee, and there have been some neighbors here who have brought up, that it's an unsafe situation at that intersection there. So I think it's a proper place to have that committee review it. And seeing that the city actually were the ones that put this parking in when we reconstructed Maple Avenue, a number of years ago.
The church.
It might be better for the city then to perhaps be on the dime if we want to remove it, because it's a safety issue to do that. Yeah.
Not as part of a rezoning issue though.
Dave, is
Don't
what
do
you're
it now,
getting
it's
at,
never gonna happen.
Hold on. Mark?
Yes.
Mark, would that be separate from the rezoning then?
Yeah, so I mean, you wouldn't have any conditions on the actual rezoning. I mean, if you wanted to, you could put a condition on the approval of the development plan. Perhaps it would be prudent to have this, a condition that it goes to the traffic committee and have the traffic committee evaluate whether, one or two of those parking spaces closest to probably 20th Street should be removed or not. That's a reasonable request.
Okay.
Or course of action.
Okay. Jennifer, what were you going to ask?
So my question is, what Dave, is what you're getting at is that parking should not be built into that development plan at all for use were you
It's
kind of,
not. I mean,
know.
if you look, it's not part of the plan, but the
well,
neighborhood.
yeah, I know it's not, like, one of my questions I had too for the developer, if that parking went away completely, are they fine with moving forward? I know it's not built in the plan, they have enough, but would that be an issue at all for them?
I was gonna say, can I comment on that?
Yes, you may. Go ahead.
So right now, those parking spaces are fully City of Holland, right? We have nothing to do with those parking spaces. I can't be more blunt than that. So you can talk about the spaces, but we have nothing to do with those. That's 100% you. The next thing for us, for our development, we have provided and actually exceeded the number of parking spaces required for what we need. So we're required to have 6 spaces for the 6 units, and we're above that. So anything that you do, and I'll say this for the city, then that is up to you to decide. We have exceeded the amount that we need for this development. Hopefully that makes you all smile, because many times it's the minimum. And we tried to do more, just knowing that we do have some units that we know that will have additional cars. So we did provide more. So as far as we're concerned, what we can actually control, we have done well and provided and exceeded the parking. What we can't control is what those parking spaces are and the existing spaces that are there. So if you would like to change that, I don't know if that would be fair to us to say conditioned on our site, because we have nothing to do with any of those parking spaces right now. So I'll end with that.
Okay. Thank you.
And I think I would agree to that as well. Again, planning staff, we can bring this to the traffic committee. I don't know that it needs to be brought to the traffic committee by the applicant.
I like that too, Jenna.
Yep.
I'd agree with that.
I just would love to see some more green space there, since we're paving so much green space in this project.
Dave, I don't disagree with you, but I don't think the onus is on the applicant.
Oh, I'm not asking them to, share in the cost of it. I'm just saying that it's never going to happen if it doesn't happen now.
Any other comments from the applicants? No? Any other questions from commission members? No? Yeah, Lynn.
So I guess this is just a little bit of a standard question. Did you ever consider fewer units in this building?
This is for the applicant.
Or does your 6 units make it cost effective for you?
I think that might be a Seth question. Is he still here?
Yep, there he is.
Yeah, sorry, I was kind of muted that whole time. But thank you for unmuting me. As far as the space is concerned, this kind of made the most sense, just because each of the 6 units are between like 900 and 1500 square feet, which is pretty relative to a lot of the houses and size of the units in the area. So going any bigger than that didn't really make a ton of sense. And 6 was kind of, it felt like it fit the neighborhood the best. And I do live on Washington, which is just like a block over. And just kind of knowing and being in a lot of the houses in the neighborhood, just within my neighbors and my own, and knowing the general space that's provided, I felt like this was probably the best fit for the neighborhood.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions? No? So before we move on though, shall we take this off the table, Jenna?
Yeah, and actually, and then I do want to speak to the rezoning, because we should vote on that first.
But we have to have a public hearing yet too, right?
Yes.
I move we take this off of the table.
I'd second that.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Luis, are you opposed?
No, I said aye. I'm just always late.
Yeah, there was a delay. That's okay. All right. And then Jenna, you want to speak to the next one and then I will open a public hearing for the whole project?
Sure. So yeah, that makes sense. So I'll speak to the rezoning, which actually should be the first one.
Okay.
And then we'll have Mark speak to the infill review since he did that one.
Okay.
So here's everyone can see my screen. All right. Okay. There's the location again. Just as a reminder, they were required to have a public outreach workshop. And so there were, the list had said that there were 33 participants, including Lynn Raymond and Mark Vanderplug. I'm not positive if Mark, were you at the public outreach workshop?
I was not, no.
Okay, and Lynn Raymond had made it, had corrected that she was also not. So they, I believe, were counted because they had reached out for the link, but they either didn't receive the link or didn't end up attending. So just to clarify that the participants may have been quite less than the 33 that were listed. And then for the rezoning request itself, so this is looking at rezoning from RTRN to PRD, which is the Planned Residential Development Zone District. And so that's in order for them to have more than 2 units constructed on their site based on the requirements of the lot size and frontage, I'm sorry, width. So looking at the future land use map, it was deemed urban residential. When you look at the city master plan, it says that the intent of this district is to maintain traditional or historic neighborhoods in the city. The urban residential, urban residential are, I'm sorry, the use in urban residential is primarily characterized by single family residential uses. However, attached single family residential units such as row houses or townhomes and multi-story apartment buildings may be appropriate on arterial corridors in this district. And then it says a traditional style of architecture should be promoted for infill development in these areas in order to help maintain the historic character of these neighborhoods. So staff would contend that indeed it does fit that with being on two corridor streets right at the corner, and then certainly preserving the historic style of the church structure is meeting the intent of the master plan land use district. And then we would say staff contends that really the site plan is designed to minimize adverse impact. Like we had just spoken about parking spaces, landscape screening, and the curb cuts, location of the curb cuts. I did go through all of the findings of fact, basically, which are general rezoning questions. And basically, you know, the summary is that they're in compliance, that this rezoning would be in compliance with these findings of fact. For instance, is the proposed use compatible with other zoning and land uses in the area? Staff would say, yes, there's a map here. This map is showing the properties that have 3 or more dwelling units. So in this vicinity. So there is still similar uses. And certainly, again, being that it's on a corner and was a church property, it's a good location for that as well. So I certainly can answer any questions if planning commissioners have any about those rezoning findings of fact. Do you have any questions regarding the rezoning itself?
I do not. Does anyone else? No? Okay. We look good here, Jenna.
What's that?
Everybody looks good here.
Great. In that case, I will go to the infill review staff report for Mark to speak on that.
And I'll make it very brief, folks. So staff, we sent out the required notices for this. We received no input from anybody that received a notice. So that's here again, that's everybody within 300 feet. Did not get any questions or comments from folks. So as far as the exterior changes on this church building here, the first time that you looked at it, they were proposing some more, some larger changes to it. They have backed off on all of that. So really kind of what you see is what you're going to get. So very, very minimal exterior changes. They're just looking to, if you can see the photo down below there, they're going to keep all the big windows on the building, which is great. They are going to have to put in some, I think some little bit of a window treatment in there because if you look at that big window there, there's going to be a first and the second floor kind of cutting right through there. So they want to be able to, you know, architecturally treat that nice with the window. So there will be a little change to the window there from what I understand, but essentially keeping the same thing. The only other changes that they're proposing are existing windows down at the kind of at the foundation level. I believe those are glass block windows now, and they want to take that out and put kind of regular windows in. So everything else is remaining the same, siding, roofing, everything else. So staff is recommending that you approve the infill review and that it does meet the standards of the ordinance.
Thanks, Mark.
Yep.
All right. What's next, Jenna?
Public hearing.
For the whole thing. All right.
At the site plan.
What was that?
Are you going to have comments on the site plan itself, or we're
doing a public hearing on everything?
Yeah.
Good.
Yep, I'm doing a public hearing on the 173 West 20th Street. That is open. If anyone would like to speak on this item, this project, you can raise your hand digitally or wave your hand on camera. Gary Mann, Mallory. Gary, when you're unmuted, could you please state your name and address for the record?
Unmuted.
There we go.
Hi, my name is Gary Mann at 175 Gemstone Lane in Holland. I'm speaking on behalf of my fiance, Mary Brunsting, who owns the property adjacent to the church on 175 20th Street. Looking at the site plan, the biggest question we've had with this whole operation is how close is the fencing, shrubbery, parking lot to the house? There's an existing fence that's been there for probably 20 some odd years that we know cuts onto the church property. There's a huge tree that like straddles both the property of the church and her house. We don't, she emailed Seth, I think a month or so ago and hasn't received any communication since then, but we're trying to figure out what's going to be done with the fencing, and the tree is the biggest thing. How much of the yard is going to get ate up, or are we going to meet with a mutual understanding of, you know, the fence has been there, are we going to go with that existing fence? You know, those kinds of questions.
So you're wondering if the tree is going to be removed or stay, and if the fence is going to be removed.
What's going to happen with the fence? Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Gary. Any other questions or comments, Gary?
No, that's our biggest concern.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Seth, or is it Ed? EDZ? If you could comment on that, Mallory, you could.
Yeah, sorry. As for reply, I'm sorry if I didn't get back to you on something. I thought I replied to everything that I saw. I think I texted maybe with you or somebody else that owned the property a little bit as well. As for the big tree that's there, that actually was removed in the past fall. So that does not exist anymore. And I think it was in October maybe that it was removed. And then as for the property line, I think we used a survey of the property, and that was kind of how the site plans were built. And so if your fence goes over the property line by any margin, then I would assume that this plan kind of, I guess, pushes back against that a little bit. So I hope that brings clarity.
Do you have an answer as far as if the fence is on the property line or over?
Yeah, I can answer that one. Am I unmuted?
Yes, you are.
Hey, it works. So yeah, for us to develop plans, we have a survey company, a licensed surveyor in the state of Michigan, come in and actually take survey. So that is actually part of the package as well. So you're looking at sheet 1 of actually 5 sheets that were submitted. The next 4 sheets are the actual, based on the actual survey, which we then produce drawings for what we need for drainage and fencing, like we're talking about right now. So getting into the fencing, and I'm scrolling down looking at the drawing myself, that existing fence actually comes off the middle section of that home and probably juts into this property maybe 6 to 7 feet. So that fence then will, yes, be removed and will be then taken from the measured location running north to south and replaced with a new fence. So your fence that does go onto this property would be removed. The section that comes from the house and then goes to the west, actually east, sorry, goes to the east, that section could remain and actually tie into the new fence if you wanted to. But a new fence will be constructed as shown. And the maple that Seth did reference is actually in the middle of the parking lot. The large tree that you're talking about, we could actually run that fence to the trunk of that tree. So that tree is actually perfectly on the property line. So that fence can easily come to each side of that tree. And then the screening plants that are on the east can be installed. So you can have fence, tree, installation of shrubbery, and that screening happen perfectly on that property line.
All right. Thank you.
The park guy likes that too. Well, that helps keep urban canopy too on private property. That's good.
Any other public comment at this time? The public hearing is still open. No. Okay, I will close the public hearing. Comments, questions from commission members? No.
No, I just had a question regarding what the current fence is versus the proposed fence. I'm looking to see if it's a similar privacy fence or the height of the existing versus, or I guess maybe you can tell us just what the proposed one is.
So applicant, what are you planning?
Probably, yeah, probably Fred.
What are they required to put in, Jenna?
They're not actually required to put in anything, but they are proposing 6 feet high fence for the majority of the site, so down to here, and then dipping it down to 3-foot fence, and then also incorporating lower shrubs by that 3-foot fence and having evergreen for the rest of it, or vitae. So we think that it, is a better, personally, a better screening than what is existing now, which is a older 6-foot fence that I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Ed, doesn't go the entire site. Is that correct?
That's correct. So what we want to do just for normal access out actually is keep that lower. So that's where you do get that transition at the end when you're exiting. But again, that's where we want to get, I call them friendly fences, right? Just to make sure that we're delineating the property line, but then also providing screening for any type of headlights that could happen. All of that would then be blocked. So there's no excess light or view basically from about 4.5, 5 feet, even to start. And then as the plantings mature, you actually get more screening. So it only gets better with age.
And just to make a clear property line delineation.
Correct. Yep, that is correct.
Yep. Okay. Any other questions for the applicant?
Actually, I have one thing. If you could talk just a little bit about your intent with the sign. It looks like you're intending to keep the existing signage. Is that correct?
Yeah, that is correct. So right now, that old sign stays, and I will voice it myself that way just because I'll say Seth and I haven't talked about that more. So maybe Seth chimes in just for keeping the exterior almost identical, that it was very easy just to keep the sign in. I don't know if he has any additional plans, but for now,
So
yes.
would that sign, change over to like Maple Lofts or,
Yeah, that's where I'll let Seth speak to that.
Yeah, actually, my partner, Matt Mock, and I did discuss the sign a little bit, whether to remove it or to maybe just change it over to a Maple Loft sign. That's still in discussion. If you guys would have any preference, we would certainly love to hear your ideas about it, because we do live in the neighborhood and love this neighborhood as well, and want to keep it ideal for people that live here. So we're very open to kind of anything and flexible with anything to do with that sign. So
Okay, so generally, this was just brought to my attention, but generally we do require sign approvals as part of, like, by the planning commission as part of the PRD or PUD with the sign specs and things like that. And I guess I just overlooked it since it was saying just, using the existing signage. So any changes really will need to go through either planning commissioners, if you give it as a condition of approval by admin staff to do, which I think would be the best idea, or a condition of approval would have to be added to say that it should come back to you for final review and approval, which we wouldn't recommend for the sign. And then in addition to that, they will still need to get a permit for the signage as well.
So can we just approve the location of the current one?
Yeah, again, I think that you should add as a condition of approval that administrative staff look and approve at the sign, whatever it may be.
Okay.
So whenever someone makes an amendment or a motion for the site plan, if they could just include that would be great.
Okay.
Amend the staff report to include a condition of approval.
All right.
Go ahead.
Does anybody know if that sign is lit? Like, do they have light, or is it just a sign with the name on it?
Is there any lighting around that sign, Ed or Seth? I know that the sign itself doesn't have, backlight or anything, but is there spotlights or anything?
from everything that I can tell, I have not seen any electrical to it at all as for the sign itself. So I think it's just a, I guess, opaque sign.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think maybe at some time it had ground lighting that maybe illuminated it. I do have to admit, I didn't dig any holes to see if there were wires running to it, but I think it's just a pediment sign, like an old church sign, that you just change letters. I don't think it is lit.
Okay. All right. So
Okay.
at this time, we will.
I will motion to approve. the
I don't,
rezoning.
Brooke, have you closed the public
Yeah.
hearing?
Yeah, oh yeah, that was,
Okay,
That was done.
okay.
But right now we have to do 3 different motions, correct?
Yeah, so I'm gonna go back to the agenda for you if
So
that.
the rezoning.
right,
I have
that's
the agenda.
zoning's first.
Yep, rezoning, then infill review, and then site plan.
Exactly. So the rezoning. is a-
Motion to approve the rezoning recommendation to city council with an acknowledgement that someone will speak to the dangerous parking on the road.
On Maple.
On Maple.
Yeah, and who is someone?
And we have two city council people here, so I think they will carry that forward.
No, we staff will carry that forward because Mark is on the traffic committee, so we will be doing that.
All right, there is a motion on the table.
Support.
Lynn supports. All those in favor, say aye.
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 And opposed?
Actually, Brooke, can you please do a roll call? I'm sorry.
Okay, fine.
Sure, because we have all night.
Mallory, go ahead.
All right. DeBlock,
Yes.
Raymond,
Yes.
Owens,
Yes.
Lozano,
Yes.
Box,
Yes.
Blunt,
Yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Next is the site plan.
Sure, move to,
Um,
no,
no,
move
we're
to
doing-
approve the infill
Mhm.
review.
Support.
Okay. Go ahead, Mallory.
All right. DeBlock,
Yep.
Blunt,
Yes.
Lozano,
Yes.
Box,
Yes.
Raymond,
Yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Owens,
Yes.
and Anderson.
Yes,
Motion to approve passes.
that's for the site.
Motion to approve the
No.
site plan review.
And now we have to do the infill review.
We just
No,
did
the
the
site
infill.
plan.
Just did it.
That was the infill.
Oh, the site plan and infill were the same?
No, infill
No.
was first. You just did the infill. Now you have to do the site
Now
plan.
we're doing, and I motion to approve the site plan.
Support.
I can.
We
Sorry,
need to have
can-
the sign in there.
Yes, please add the sign.
Can
Condition
you
of
also add
approval.
Yes,
the fence?
and, okay. The staff can approve whatever they want to do with the sign.
Okay, I'll clarify
Can you
by
also-
saying condition of approval, that the sign receive administrative approval.
Thank you.
Can you also add to make sure that the tree remains there and then the fence be built around, because that's not on the site plan?
Sure, and condition of approval that the existing tree on the property line, remains and is incorporated into the fencing system.
Okay.
Yep.
That's the motion.
And I would support that, and whoever supported it agrees with that change as
I
well.
agree. I agree with those
Dave,
changes. as
you
well.
made
Thank you.
the recommendation or the
Exactly.
first motion, so you can't support also.
Right, but then you changed it, so I had to make it part of what I said.
Oh,
Okay.
I'm sorry. Okay.
Dave motioned.
I supported it. The mayor did.
Nathan-
Yep.
Mr. Mayor supports, and Mallory is going to do a roll call.
All right. Motion. Okay. DeBlock,
Yep.
Box,
Yes.
Blunt,
Yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Raymond,
Yes.
Lozano,
Yes.
Owens,
Yes.
and Anderson.
Yes.
Motion to approve passes.
Thank you, Steph and Ed, for your information and answering our questions and joining us on this call.
And I'll be in touch with you about next steps with City Council.
Awesome. All right, new business. Moving on, Jenna.
Yes, this one I'm going to turn over to Mark Cornelis.
Right. Everybody hear me okay?
Yep.
All right, what we have before us is an application by the current developer for the Black River Flats development. You're probably familiar with the Kensington Place development, and Black River Flats is the multifamily portion of that. So they have a PRD that's been approved, I believe originally in 2017, and then it was re-upped a couple of years ago. So what they're coming to us right now is for a modification to that PRD. Essentially, they're adding the prior plan included 9 more or less, at least architecturally, replica apartment buildings, multifamily buildings, about 7,000 square feet. And what this modification includes is adding a 10th. So yeah, the original site plan called for 9, spaced 4 of them around one parking lot, and then 5 of them around kind of a replica parking lot that were adjoining. And so what they're doing.
Sorry, Mark, would it be helpful now for me to go to the site plan?
Sure, that'd be great. Thanks, Jenna.
Sure.
So you can see the 2 kind of replica parking lots, and right now the construction, or phase 1, is focused on the southern parking lot, and the unit or the building that's kind of in the northeast corner of the southern parking lot is the proposed additional building. Because it's a replica building, really all the dimensional requirements are compliant with the PRD standards, and all the other components of the PRD remain in compliance. Comments from city departments just noted basically some routine conditions around seeking permits and those sorts of things. So in brief, the recommendation from staff is to approve the site plan amendment with those conditions subject to the outcome of the public hearing. And the applicant is present. I don't know if now is the right time for them to make any other additional comments that I might have overlooked, or if you want to do that on a question basis.
Nope. They have every chance to explain more in depth if you are.
John Casserly from Naderveld is on the call.
Okay.
Any
Mallory,
comments?
there we go. John, you are unmuted.
Hi. Mark pretty much covered it. It's hopefully pretty straightforward for everyone. The developer, we had maybe a couple locations that are available for additional buildings, and they're the demand that they're seeing, it just fit for them to get an additional building in there. We have all the infrastructure, we have enough parking, and it's like Mark said that they have a product. They want to put 10 instead of 9 out here, so just asking for approval. And I don't see any issues with meeting any of the conditions, and I believe most of them have already been met. We just need to provide proof of that to all the departments there. So if anybody has any further questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
John, I have a question. I wonder though, if this is a big project and I'm seeing a lot of big buildings, there's going to be a lot of apartments, there's a lot of parking lot. I don't see, besides the clubhouse, I don't see any planned area for people to gather or play or anything for kids or families.
So, I wasn't involved in the the original approval. So it, you know, that there is there is some kind of green space, but there isn't really amenities right now. And hopefully that future clubhouse can provide that. It's just the developer doesn't know what that looks like at this point. So it, you know, I don't know why the city didn't push harder on that a couple of years ago to get some more amenities in there. So I don't know if I have a great answer for you, but.
Yeah, so this was approved, Brooke, without those amenities. So as an amendment to the PUD, Planning Commission, if they so desired, could put a condition of approval that there be some type of outdoor space, green area, et cetera, surrounding the future clubhouse area. But again, you know, that this was already approved as such, just without this building.
Yeah, I was gonna say, which building? It's the northeast one?
Yeah, it's this one.
In the southern block, it's the northeast building.
Oh, it's the one right next to the clubhouse?
Yep.
Yeah.
And I don't know this larger development very well, but I do know there is some green space kind of in the larger, in the Kensington project, which is basically just across that Sherwood Street.
Yeah, there is that common area.
This is a completely different feel though, and a completely different development.
Sure.
So yeah, I don't know if I feel like that extra building is necessary. I would rather see that as an open space for all of the apartments that are gathered in this space on this property, but that's just me. Anyone else have any questions for the applicant?
Well, and staff would just add that, you know, we do believe that both could occur, that this building could happen, and that there could also be a condition that there's some type of outdoor area. I think that there is a need for more housing, so I wouldn't want it to be rejected for that reason. Again, it's up to you, Planning Commission, but that would just be my add.
In the original plans, not the one that was approved as a part of the PUD in 2017, but there was a building planned for the east end of that parking lot. And I don't know the reason why they moved it around the corner, so to speak, to the northeast corner, but you know, presumably that's open and available. That's not the property line, and that gray dash line is not the property line. That, yeah, the space that Jenna is noting there is potential green space.
Okay.
Yeah, John, can you speak to why the location here wasn't forward?
I think it's utilities was the biggest concern. So we do have some utilities stubbed to the location that we're proposing right now. So we'd have to run the utilities further. Also, the grade kind of drops off to maybe a drainage swale along that east property line. So I think having the building kind of closer to you know, the main drive aisle, the utilities, and you know, maybe some less grading involved, it was a more attractive option for the developer.
Okay.
So John, would you say that there's ample area here for, you know, some type of an outdoor?
I mean, we have a lot of, you know, open area. You know, there's really nothing planned at that point. So if there's an addition to provide some amenities, you know, I think there's plenty of room to get something done. You know, also adjacent to Sherwood Ave, there's kind of the drive aisle there on the north and south kind of corners there. There's green space that's, you know, kind of more adjacent to some of the existing and future buildings. You know, so we have the flexibility to get something in there if that's what it takes to get this additional building approved.
It looks like you have some right on the corners, like you said, into the entrance in this complex and along Sherwood. Those corners could each have a great gathering space for people, whether there's a privacy fence or some green, but just something to think about.
Well, and again, planning commission can provide that as a condition of their approval, you know, with some specifics. I don't know if it's you know.
Well, it seems like, Brooke, you're thinking about something with a use as opposed to just green space?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I'm thinking like, I'm envisioning, of course, like a fenced in playground would be perfectly fine on one of these corners, whether it's the entrance or up on the main street in Sherwood corner, or I'm thinking a playground and or space for tables or something. We just saw a plan for a apartment building complex, and they had some great gathering spaces in that. So
Andy, is there a park anywhere near that general area, or is it pretty much?
It's there's one down the street to the west, off of 143rd. It's a ways away.
It's not walkable.
No, it's not. But I hear what you're saying, Brooke, but I know playgrounds and they are super expensive. So if we're talking just some green space for people to gather, that's different. So yeah, I think that might be expensive.
Yeah, and I think not only
Cool.
expensive to put in, but to maintain. I mean, so long term, it's, you know, you got to build in those maintenance costs for the equipment, which you know all
And
too
those,
well.
even those townhomes on Fairbanks, that has a small playground in it. And that's a way smaller development than this. So this is a lot of units, a lot. And I just would hate to see families move in here and not have that access, or at least.
Yeah, you wonder what the future clubhouse area would include. Is it going to be, does the Kensington one have does it have a pool there? I want to say it has a pool even in there, or is it just fenced in space?
The Kensington where the houses is has a pool.
Okay, yeah.
There is a pool?
Yeah, it's a clubhouse space.
Yeah, I've been in that pool.
You.
That pool is not for the benefit of these folks though, so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Good point.
I would go with Jenna. She had a good suggestion. I would say have some kind of a condition of approval. And perhaps you could even say, hey, folks, before you come in and ask for a building permit for this building, if it does get approved, that they have to come in with a plan and either go through an admin review or even back to you all for the future of the clubhouse area. So we can kind of nail that down and then kind of tell them you want to know some outdoor recreational amenities too, whatever that may be. If it's a small tot lot or if it's just picnic tables or whatever, but kind of get them down for the record with what is that clubhouse area going to be too. So that's a reasonable request.
And I can't make a request, so it has to be all of you who want.
In other words, we can add when we go to motion to.
Dave, you can't nominate the whole
Have we
night.
had the public hearing yet?
No.
No. Okay, well then get that done.
Dave is ready for cocktail hours.
No, I didn't realize we
Just-
had a 3-hour meeting today. I was done at 6.
Well, that's not your mistake, not ours.
I know it is.
All right. Any other questions for the
I don't
applicant?
want to lose your quorum though.
Hey. Any other questions for the applicant? No, okay. At this time, I'm going to open the public hearing on this item. If anybody would like to speak to the Sherwood Avenue, they can raise their hand at this time. All right. I see a hand by Wilson Pratt, but I don't know if that's an old one or if that's.
It just popped up, so I can.
It did? Okay. Wilson?
Hello, yes, can you hear me?
Yes. Are you here to
Great.
speak about the Sherwood Avenue?
I am, yes, thank you.
Yeah.
I'll state my full name and address first, of course. So my name is Wilson Crockett. I live at 2101 Kensington Park, which is basically across the street from Sherwood. First, just as a quick side note, I find the lack of humility on display about this project when this entire Kensington community is, to be perfectly honest, negatively affected by this continued proposal. I just find that astounding. But now I'll get to my actual written portion here. But my wife, Rochelle, and my 2.5-year-old daughter, Emmy, we live at 2101 Kensington, directly across from Sherwood Avenue. We moved to Kensington Park in April of 2017. This was our first home, previously living in apartment complexes. Unfortunately, complexes that were filled with noise, high amounts of traffic, and unfortunately incidents of petty crime. You can only imagine the utter disappointment and frankly our anger when we would later learn that a 9-building apartment complex was on the books for approval across the street from our home. Knowing full well that the city wouldn't side with the current Kensington community, I attended the Planning Commission in October of, I believe, 2017. I spoke to the board and former mayor about the tranquility of our neighborhood. I spoke to them about the children and how they play freely in the park, ride their bikes without fear or incident on our quiet streets. I spoke to the inevitable fact that the proposal was, if the proposal was approved, it would rip away the very fabric of a peaceful community. It would add increased traffic by some 200 vehicles, contaminating our streets with speed, and will absolutely put our children in direct harm. When our community asked for speed bumps, stop signs, and possible lights at various locations, 143rd, for example, or the new Main Street, we were basically scoffed at, not really talked too much about that situation, as if almost the basic safety measures weren't enough of a priority. And now you're being presented with an amendment to continue destroying the neighborhood by adding an additional unit. You will most certainly approve it, once again, because unfortunately money over the community and what's one more additional building. What will most likely not be entertained with any real enthusiasm is the idea of the safety measures. We have heard nothing about stop signs, yield signs, speed bumps, and you will most likely not entertain the idea of how not to disrupt this peaceful community further. To say that I'm disappointed in our community developer is an understatement. To date, we rarely, if at all, hear anything from him except when we are blindsided by these egregious measures. My family and I continue to be concerned about the safety of our daughter and the many families and children in this neighborhood. I ask on behalf of myself, my family, and the members of the community to please deny this proposal. We cannot ask the developer directly to withdraw from the proposal because our efforts would be in vain. And frankly, they've shown that they do not care about the few. Perhaps my asking the city to deny will also be in vain. In fact, I know it will, but just know you have many upset and discouraged residents who are watching their community unravel or get destroyed for what it's worth. So I thank you for your time. And again, thank you for hearing me out.
Thank you. Anyone else to speak on this item? I do not see anything else. At this time, I will close the public hearing. All right, discussion among commission members.
Brooke, so I'm not a commission member, but I just want to point out that the Kensington Place development is a very large, it's a planned community. This apartment complex was in the initial concept plan from the very beginning when Kensington was first approved conceptually back, 17, 18 years ago. That information is all publicly available. It's too bad that the person that spoke during the public hearing was not made aware of that when they purchased the property, but this is all very publicly accessible information that this is a large master plan community, and there's integration of single family detached duplexes, townhomes, apartment buildings, commercial mixed use buildings. It's a master plan community, and we weren't hiding anything. So just wanted to state that.
Yeah, I remember having this conversation a few years ago too, and hearing from some people in that neighborhood, feeling like they hadn't been notified of that plan in the beginning. And that's hard to disprove that when, yeah, it was presented as a whole set. Any other?
If I could jump in just to address maybe some of the safety and traffic issues.
Okay. Yes, John, that'd be great.
So, you know, these are public streets, you know, Sherwood and Main Street that was just recently constructed. So we have limited control about, you know, putting in speed bumps or any other traffic calming measures. You know, that's coming from your traffic department and Brian White. And I believe one of the conditions of the previous approval was to look into putting a traffic light out on Lincoln Road and Main Street. And that's an MDOT road. And they said that the anticipated traffic doesn't warrant a light at this time. Like you mentioned that, you know, this is, you know, master planned, you know, planned unit development with, you know, more development coming in the future, which might end up crossing that threshold where MDOT would entertain the, you know, construction of a signalized intersection at Lincoln and Main Street, and, you know, potentially even out on 43rd, well, 143rd. But at this time, they said it doesn't reach that threshold. So as far as safety, it's, you know, there's only so much we can do because we don't have control of these streets outside of, you know, this block of property here that we're developing.
John, is there on-street parking on Sherwood?
I don't believe so. And again, you know, we're providing more than the required amount of parking. But, you know, it was easy to add a building to this and still comply with the city's requirement. So, you know, we shouldn't have any need to be on Sherwood, or the residents of the apartment buildings shouldn't have any need to be on Sherwood or Main Street. Plenty of parking on site.
And there will be an entrance and exit onto M40, correct?
Yes, so that's already been constructed and should be operational. So it's actually a public street. You can really see it on this plan at the top. It's actually called Main Street.
And that will be the most accessible way to get in and out of this apartment complex.
Yep.
If I could add to the gentleman that spoke, I saw that I actually just admitted him back in. Wilson, I'm going to mess up your last name. I apologize. Crocked, is it? Mm-hmm. So if there are concerns, especially after the buildings are built and occupied, about, you know, still a need for traffic signs or speed bumps, things of that sort, you can certainly bring that to the traffic committee. Again, as the engineer just pointed out, that these are public roads. So it's not something that the developer would even be able to put in. It would have to come from the city. And those decisions are made by the Transportation Services Department. So if you reach out to them, they can put this on what's called the traffic committee discussion to review and see whether or not the traffic and circulation, et cetera, needs to be revised in that way.
Any other questions for the applicant?
Yeah, I got one. So the addition of the proposed building, that site was selected over putting it to the east, like in the mirrored half to the north, because there's already utilities at that site. If you're planning on putting a future clubhouse there, would that not also use those same utilities? I guess my question is the clubhouse a near future thing or way down the road? And why not use the utilities for that?
So we could kind of tee off those utilities and service both the clubhouse and that proposed building without much issue. It's something that I got to discuss with Holland BPW to make sure, we're doing what's required. But, we had planned for something to be there. So it was just easier and a little more cost effective than, running new utility stubs. It's kind of sitting in the middle of the drive aisle that comes down into the parking lot. So we would need to run across, that parking lot. So, even if we have to cut in new services for either the proposed building or the clubhouse, if BPW requires us to do that, it's, 25% the amount that we would have to if we were kind of in that eastern location. And I think there's some grading concerns, they have to bring in some fill to bring the grade up in that eastern location.
Any other questions? Okay. And any motions?
Sure, I'm going to motion to approve the proposed site plan with conditions. And the one additional condition for the list that's already on our page would be to add a play space or two.
All right.
Should we amend what we mean by play space? Like what all that could be, and if that's to staff approval or if that's coming back to us?
That would be staff approval.
Yeah.
Is it green space or play space?
Play.
Yes.
Or gathering?
I feel like it needs to be defined in some way. Like, are we requiring, because I wouldn't support requiring playground equipment, but some type of open play space with conditional approval. Because if you get into requiring playground equipment, is it a swing? Is it a slide? Is it?
Yeah, it's super complicated to define that.
Yeah, I think I would recommend gathering place.
Yeah.
And have staff approve that.
Ew.
I'd support.
Sure.
This is a big complex with lots of.
I'm with Brooke on that. I think that a complex this size with this many units, there should be more than one play space. I really think so.
Well, that's why I said two, but if there are 11 units, so 2 or 3.
Okay, can we call it gathering space though?
Sure.
Sure.
With 2, but gathering?
No.
2 gathering spaces.
2 or 3.
Is the clubhouse considered the gathering space, or is that in addition to the clubhouse?
In addition to the clubhouse.
Addition.
This is outdoor.
Yes.
Outdoor gathering space.
Right. I think we need to clarify that it's outdoor gathering.
Well, I think I'm going to urge you guys before we decide. I know we're already getting to the vote, but if they have space and ability to be able to add a building, we just saw another site plan that had a lot of outdoor space plus retail space plus, a lot of other amenities that this doesn't have. So adding another building simply just to get more, I feel like they're not going to have a lot of things in this building, and it's not necessarily conducive to the quality of life for the area. So for me, I would rather not have this be an afterthought of make something there, throw out some bench and not have it happen. So I would have preferred to see a little bit more additional things besides just we need more buildings. So if that urges anybody else.
Luis, you're
And just to note that as part of this full PUD plan, concept plan, Main Street will actually have some commercial on it as well. That hasn't come in yet, but that is one of the next phases. So there will be more amenity for this community in the future.
Yeah, the whole entrance, I remember we had talked about that they were going to encourage businesses and restaurants and retail to come into that area on Main Street from M40.
Yeah.
All right, so Dave's motion is on the table of having 2 extra gathering places besides the clubhouse.
Outdoor gathering places.
Outdoor.
Gathering spaces besides the clubhouse.
I support.
Okay, Mallory?
DeBlack,
Yep.
Owens,
Yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Raymond,
Yes.
Fox,
Yes.
Lozano,
No.
Blunt,
Yes.
and Anderson.
Yes.
Motion to approve passes.
Just to confirm, Jenna, when I said conditions of approval that you had listed already, so all the things that were on this page, correct?
Yeah, so that would be added to the condition of approval.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Great. Thank you, John, for joining us tonight and for waiting so patiently. I know that took a while.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thanks, John.
Bye-bye.
All right, scheduling of public hearings? None. Communications from commission members? Nope. And communications from staff?
Yes, we do have
There-
one.
There is one. And I think we can keep it fairly brief. Essentially, I think it's customary anytime that an adjoining township either amends their master plan or is in the process of creating a new master plan that the city has an opportunity to comment on that. So we did get notice from Park Township that they were amending their master plan, specifically the public use, public open space portion. I had some email communication with the lead consultant, and from my reading of it and from his description, it sounds like there's no bearing whatsoever on anything of any immediate interest to the city. Essentially, they just reclassified some properties. They reclassified all of their properties that are owned by the township and designated those as public open space. And then they unclassified a few properties that were in that category previously. So it's and in addition to that, they just made some textual corrections as they found some mistakes from the previous edition. So I don't think there's anything really of any consequence to the city, but if anybody wants to see the letter or the email exchange that I had with the consultant, we can certainly share that.
Thanks, Mark. All right. Any other communications from staff? No? Motion for adjournment.
I would move to adjourn.
You would. I'll
An
support
hour
that.
ago. Yeah.
No, we're
No,
not.
we don't have to vote.
Wait,
It's a unanimous voice vote.
We're not done.
Dave. So we have a motion for adjournment but we're not leaving after this, correct, Jenna?
Well, that's going to be a conversation to talk to you all about. So
Okay.
that's ultimately up to you. But yes, please do not leave immediately so that we can discuss that. Good point.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Don't leave. Jenna?
Okay, so now we're at 7:25. Fred has left us, unfortunately. Luis just had to get off as well. He had another appointment. So the question then to you is, do we do what needs to happen next, basically, which is to have the conversation about the TNR analysis that was presented, or do you want to hold off until next week? Now the caveat to that is that with other items that also need to be discussed next week, like the NMU issues that have been brought back up, and then certainly we're going to need to have time to bring you through the formatting of the whole Udo, which Chris has gotten up now, at least for staff's view, which I sent you. So, and then there's other issues such as we have to notice if we're going to stay on track for the March 9th meeting, we have to notice that by February 20th. So that means that we can't make changes after that. Substantive changes, formatting changes can happen, but not anything substantive.
I don't know if we're quite ready for that.
So
Yeah,
the
and I have to get up
question
at
is,
7:30, everyone, because I have to pick up kids from sports stuff. So I'm gonna be up.
okay, so the question then is, you know, kind of twofold is, do you want to postpone the discussion for February 16th meeting? Again, in addition to discussing the NMU information potentially, unless there's a decision that we move this to we move what our plan has been to have the public hearing, planning commission March 9th, move it again a month to April.
I would move it to April.
I want to do this right. And
Yeah,
if
I'm not ready.
takes a little more time to do it, let's do it right.
Okay.
Both Jen and I agree with this too. So we're at the point that we would not be able to do our work and do it well. We're just cramming it into one meeting next week, and you'll probably have lots more public comment from folks
Right.
too. So really the time that you have to devote to this stuff it's not a whole lot with our meetings anymore. So what Jen and I are both kind of unanimously, yeah, we should push it another month. I hate to do that. We really want to keep moving on this, but we really need to push it another month. We want to do it right.
No, that's good. I don't want you guys to be rushed either.
And we need to have good discussions of this with all of the planning commissioners here.
Right.
We've got 3 missing right now.
Yeah, I'm also hungry too. I don't discuss well when I'm hungry.
Yeah.
No decisions are made that are good.
Yeah.
You're hungry.
No. I know I see people eating on here and I'm like,
I know, I'm gonna go get my dinner. You guys can keep talking.
Well, that's all
Okay,
right.
so on that note, then we'll reconvene next week, Tuesday at 3 o'clock. And
Tuesday? Okay, I thought it was Thursday, but okay.
The 16th.
Always Tuesday.
15th is Tuesday.
I will not be here till at least 3:30. I'll let that be known now because I have to pick kids up from school. But hopefully Fred will be feeling fine by then and he's okay with being vice chair.
Good.
All right.
All right.
Hey, thank you, everyone.
Thank
Thanks.
you all.
everybody.
Thanks.
Have a good one.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Yes.
Bye.